Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We are live, and it is a great day. It's a great evening. It's a Thursday night. What could be better than a Thursday night? Not a lot of things. And we have a great show for you tonight. We have joining us Matt Taibbi. You may have heard of him. And I also co-host a show with him called Useful Idiots. It's a podcast and a YouTube stream. I'm also going to be bringing in to debate with Matt Benjamin Studebaker, who is an academic getting his PhD, and they are going to be having a debate about Marcuse. And then, okay, guys talking shit in the thing, just pay me some money and I'll read you your chats, and then you'll have some meaning in your life. Okay. Then we're going to bring on Kate Willett, a very good comedian, and she's going to talk about her stand-up album, audiobook, called Dirtbag Anthropology. And then we're going to bring on Matt Brunig, and he's going to talk about Neera Tanden and her tweets and her policy and how he lost his job over them. Let's bring in the co-host, the Thursday night co-host, and I'm speaking of none other than Leslie Lee. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
I'm good. Very happy to be here with all of you once again. Hope y'all having a good night. We have a great show ahead of us.
We have such a great show ahead of us.
It's such a blockbuster. Every time I'm on the show, you got the biggest names on YouTube, and you even have a debate. Those are huge on YouTube. People love those
debates.
debate streams, and people will be debating something actually like intellectual, not the usual YouTube debates, which are about very, very strange topics. I don't want to get into it.
No, we're not even going to get into it. We don't want to recognize that. We don't want to encourage it. Am I lagging at all, by the way? How's my internet?
You look fine to me.
No delay? Okay. Yeah. All right. Let me just make sure. And guys, I just want to thank you. You know, I know I'm not lagging. This is a tight ship. And what I'm really doing now is just giving everyone a chance to, what do I want them to do, Leslie? To subscribe.
Yes. Please subscribe to the Katie Halper Show, patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. You can see the URL right there.
So you don't have to do anything. It's right there. You can subscribe. On YouTube, you can subscribe, which is just requires you hitting subscribe and then the bell. Then you can also subscribe to Patreon. And to do that, you go to patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. And, you know, you can just throw $1 towards it. Or if you want extra content, bonus interviews, extended interviews, we're going to do some other things that are pretty cool that we're going to announce soon. Then you can become contributors at the supporters at the $5 level. So that's a pretty good thing to do. Anything else? How was your week, Leslie?
My week was okay. Okay, you know. I'm just excited to, you know, be walking around with those extra letters and not having to do any more homework.
Is it different? Like, do you feel a difference in your quality of life now that you have a master's?
Not quite yet, but I don't have to do any more homework, so that is an immediate improvement in quality of life. I do have to say that is an improvement. People, thank you to everyone shouting me out in the chat. I am happy to be the semi-regular co-host. You asked me if I was watching anything this week, and you asked me if there was any pop culture stuff we gotta get into. There actually is one, a huge one I hate to acknowledge because of my history with this man, but Michael Che of Saturday Night Live made a good joke.
Leslie,
they finally did
Leslie,
it.
I have to save you some embarrassment.
What?
I know that we present a united front and that we watch each other and listen to each other's shows, and I get it that you have a lot of exposure to Jack Allison as your co-host, but we did cover this on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
But I assume what you're actually doing is just catching up everyone who was here who was not here on Sunday. So I want to commend you for that. But we may have had on Ali Abu Nima, an amazing Palestinian journalist, to talk about it. We went through it. But please share whatever you have to say about Michael Che, we'd love to hear it. I believe your fight was more, you were kind of defending Jack's honor. Do you want to tell the story?
No, it was just like he was actually like just targeting us. And he started targeting like the it was so weird. Like he got mad at Jack for talking about that the submission packet process was unfair because it had this addendum where if you include your Twitter name in your packet and say, hey, look at my timeline for jokes, SNL, NBC, Universal owns the right to your entire timeline and all the jokes. If you're just applying for the job. You're just applying for the job.
Let me just back up because I did this thing that I almost never do, which is I didn't totally set it up as thoroughly as I like to. So what we're talking about before I cut Leslie off is that last Saturday, on the past Saturday, there was a joke on Saturday Night Live, right? And it was delivered by Michael Che, and it was on Weekend Update, and he said, Israel has vaccinated half its population, and I'm going to guess it's the Jewish half. Now, it was a good joke, and people, of course, did what they always do when Israel gets criticized and is subjected to valid criticism, and they accuse the critics of anti-Semitism. Now, technically, as a lot of the defenders of Israel pointed out, they are vaccinating non-Jews because they're vaccinating all the citizens of Israel, which means there are Muslim and Christian citizens, and I'm sure other denominations. But the problem is, do you want to say something about this, Leslie? I just realized I didn't want to make sure everyone was caught up. But,
no, that's fine. And yeah, the only thing I really had to say was, wow, they finally made a good joke, and they're probably going to apologize for it.
Right.
Like, they finally say something funny, and they're probably going to apologize for it. Just like when they apologized to Dan Crenshaw. It's like
for the joke about the eye patch? Yeah,
they didn't even say anything that mean about him. They say he looks like a 70s porn star or something like that. It wasn't even like a funny joke or even mean. And
it was just a good target.
And just because he's a big baby, he took like great offense. Like it wasn't even like an attack on him, but this alleged tough guy pretends like he's Captain America, got super offended and went on and wanted an apology for like not even an insult. Well,
I think he's actually ableist, and I think he's kink shaming, and I think that he's the one who has to apologize. Because what's wrong with being compared to a porn star? And why is pointing out... was this an eye-related joke or no?
No, it wasn't even like eye... Oh. Well, technically eye-related in the sense that he wears an eye patch, right?
And does that fall into the 70s porn
I guess
thing?
Yeah, that was like... It didn't. The joke didn't even make that much sense. It wasn't a good joke. It didn't make that much sense. It was just like, hey, this guy looks different. That was basically the joke.
Oh, that's kind of othering.
It was, but I think he should be. If you go around dressing like Captain America, you should be able to handle it.
Yeah, right. And he's also, isn't his whole thing that like the left is a bunch of snowflakes?
Yes, exactly. That is his whole thing. His whole thing.
And anyone get canceled or so shout out to Michael Che for that joke. And again, the issue is, and if anyone missed it, I really recommend. We have 2 short clips up on the on YouTube. I really, really, really recommend the interviews that we did with Ali Abu Nima. And the issue is that there's really not, people like to say it's complicated a lot about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There's really nothing complicated. Israel is required under international law and the 4th Geneva Convention to take care of the people they are occupying. As the occupying power, it's their responsibility. So just watch that video. It makes it all very clear. It lays everything out. And Michael Che, I guess, shout out. And tell us, Leslie, by the way, before we move on, why did he start interacting with you?
No, it was just because Jack made a tweet about that packet, how that little addendum was like unfair and kind of ridiculous, and like he just made this huge deal about it. It's not the first time Michael Che went after critics, but it was very strange because Jack wasn't even criticizing like the show, his work, but like something like the lawyers came up with. So that's why it was strange. And then he went back and found that Jack like criticized SNL, which anybody with any taste
Right.
has done. And then it became just a back and forth. He would like shame Jack for like eating soup because he's doesn't have as much money as Michael Che. Like it was very weird and strange. But it did have a happy ending because I was able to drive Michael Che to delete his Twitter account.
That is
'Cause
amazing. My co-host, guys. My co-host.
yeah, because I just posted a picture of him giving Dan Crenshaw a standing ovation, and like that's really embarrassing. That's really embarrassing.
God, it all comes
for a
full
black
circle, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah, it all came together, and it had a happy ending.
Yeah.
And now he's actually did one good joke. So
and you know what? I bet the lesson he learned from you doing that was, you know what would be good? How I could redeem myself, perhaps? I bet through launching a biting, scathing joke at Israel.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny because his best friend and co-host, which Seth is he? I forget the name, but anyway, he's engaged to marrying Scarlett Johansson, who infamously gave up. What was it? It wasn't UNICEF or some court. She was the head of some charity. She was a spokesperson for some charity, but then she also got hired to do commercials, I think, for SodaStream, which uses Palestinian occupied territories as their factory there. And the charity was like, you should not do the SodaStream commercials if you're going to represent our brand. And she gave up the charity to do the SodaStream. So it was very interesting for Michael Che to make this stand with his boats in there.
Wow. Well, yeah, we want to thank you. We want to thank Michael Che. Do we have any super chats that we want to read?
Cringe trigger warning. Let's never forget Dan Crenshaw's Avengers-style Georgia Reloaded video campaigning for Purdue and Loeffler as a super. So bad, and they lost, even more embarrassing. He's like as embarrassing as a Democrat. He's as embarrassing as a Democrat with his stuff.
David writes, just Maddie, Israel is one of the Pentagon's... Okay, now I can't see it. Israel is one of the Pentagon's...
vacation homes.
Vacation homes, thank you. Israel is one of the Pentagon's vacation homes. Okay. I don't totally get that, but it sounds cutting. Israel is one of the Pentagon's vacation homes. Oh, one other point I want to make that Ali made. Really good point. Israel does not represent all Jews. So even the allegation that it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel is, wait for it, kind of anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Isn't that cool?
It's don't you all you guys stick together for y'all?
Yeah, dual loyalty, blind faith, and blind loyalty and support for Israel. Not good, guys. So if anyone says that it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, ask them why and for how long they've been anti-Semitic. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, and on that note, somebody asked super chat for Corey Gil Schuster on the show.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? I just want to say we can I think move forward with the show. So excited about the next part, but I also do want to say, remind me to bring this up later, okay, Leslie? That I started watching Behind Her Eyes on Netflix.
Behind Her Eyes.
Or Beneath some preposition. Anyway.
Okay, it's a thriller, it looks like.
Yeah. And yeah, David points out the Arabs, Palestinians are also Semitic. I mean, yes, but I don't know if that's the best argument. If someone says it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel, it's a bit of a semantics point. I mean, it's accurate, but I'm not sure it's a useful thing to do. What do you think, Leslie?
Yeah, it's just you can't get semantic about Semitic.
Nice. You're being or am I being anti-semantic? And Donnie Posner says, my parents are Jewish, born in Israel. I'm an atheist. Am I Jewish or not? Okay, Donnie, here's the rule. Ready? You are, for me at least, if you're Jewish enough for Hitler, you're Jewish. And that's not even a joke. Although Judah Friedlander does make a very good joke about that, where he says, because he is half Jewish, his dad is Jewish, his mom isn't. And for religious Jews, being Jewish requires having a Jewish mother. And so his joke is that when people find out that you're half Jewish, they act like you killed their dog. And he goes, but I went to the Holocaust Museum and I saw that for Nazis, being Jewish meant having one Jewish grandparent. So in some ways, Hitler is more accepting of Jews than other Jews are, which I thought was funny. That's a joke, but I actually think for my family, that's like, my family's not religious, but we're definitely, I would say, Jewish. There are all these different types of Jewish identity, but I didn't used to identify as Jewish, and then I realized I really was.
Super chat from Brian Frederick there. Senate parliamentarian just ruled the minimum wage increase can't be in the COVID relief bill.
Senate parliamentarian just ruled the minimum wage increase can't be in the COVID relief bill. Okay, why?
Yeah.
That's no good. All right.
I mean, I just want to ask anybody, have you gotten your money yet that they promised in the first week? First week, checks out the door. Any update on that? Where's our fucking money? Where is our fucking money? I swear to God, if I catch one of these busters in the streets, I'm going to need my money. Yeah. I'm going to need my money. I don't care which one of them I see. I'm going to be leaving that place with $2,000.
You did not hear it here first, folks. Because I don't want anyone to get in trouble. So let's bring in,
I'll ask nicely.
Yeah, you'll ask nicely, yeah.
Next.
Leslie is look at how kind and sweet he is, and that face. Very sweet smile. So let's bring on to the show 2 guests, and it is going to be a rumble in the non-jungle, and we are bringing on my co-host. I mean, he is a person in his own right, award-winning journalist, publisher or writer of New York Times best-selling books, most recently Hate Inc., Matt Taibbi. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how's it going, Katie?
Good, you?
Good. A little disorganized, but good.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
I
can't
doing?
Really relate to that, so I'll try to get over that big distance between us.
Yeah, the delta.
The delta, yeah, the chasm. Thank you, yeah.
Right.
This is Leslie. You've
Hi,
met
Leslie.
before.
Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah.
How's it going? Good to see you.
And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Of course.
Matt has multiple humans and a creature in his family. So,
I do.
Yeah. And then Benjamin Studebaker. Let's bring Benjamin in. Hello, Ben.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hello.
Of course, yes. And this is going to be a chummy. We call them chum debates. I just made that up. What can we call them, Leslie? Chum debates? That's good, right? Chum debates.
Don't think chum debates
I like
is the good thing, especially with the state of debate on YouTube as it is now.
Oh yeah.
I just don't think you want to go there. Might get a lot of views. Well,
that's what I'm not above that.
Is the state of debate on YouTube, like uncivil, or is that what you're saying?
Yes, usually very uncivil,
Gotcha.
Generally speaking, and generally focused on issues like incest. That's the sort of thing they actually debate.
Like debates,
on
right?
YouTube.
On it?
Yeah, they debate. They debate whether it is immoral or not. I am not joking about this. This is 100%, 1,000% true. This is what they debate about.
Where's the
controversy
on?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing. First, I didn't want to have to explain this, but I guess I have to now.
Okay.
So there are certain people who the point is basically to prove that you're more logical and rational by proving that you can defend an extreme position, or at least that someone can't attack a certain position without appealing to emotion or something like that. So what they'll do is say, well, can you actually explain to me why incest is bad without you appealing to some kind of morality or emotion.
Or
All
norms,
the
right?
norms. So basically the debate is always like, well, basically you're just saying you don't like incest because it's disgusting. Well, people say being gay is disgusting, and what's the difference between you? And that is, I swear to God, there's hundreds hundreds of hours of this stuff by people who think they are all philosophers. I am not joking. It's the most amazing thing. People are going to think I made this up, but I'm not. You can look up Destiny, Vosh, any of these people, and this is what they do all day. This is what they do.
Well,
I'm not prepared for that, but
well,
hopefully it doesn't come to that.
It's interesting you say that because Leslie and viewers especially viewers who have come to see Matt and / me and Matt will probably know that something that I stumbled into was basically a defense of necrophilia.
Oh yeah, they do that one too. They do want that one too a lot.
Well,
they do that.
Okay, then they are fellow travelers of mine.
Yes.
And I'll just summarize very quickly. We were talking about.
They've mentioned you, actually. They've mentioned you before.
Really?
Yes, I'm not even joking. I forgot about that.
But I'm anti. But incest, I have no way. No. I am a necrophilia questioning. And here's what's really great about my open mind towards necrophilia. I have no open mind. Like it disgusts me. Like I don't have an open mind. I have no skin in the game. No dog in the race, whatever. But it's a victimless crime for everyone except the family member, the loved ones. But the actual person, unless my rule is that on a moral level, if you are religious and you commit or engage in necrophilia, you're immoral. But if you're an atheist, and here's the most black and white, ready? And this may have been cut out of a useful idiot, so people are going to be so happy that they came here. Ready?
Oh, no.
If you are an atheist and your victim, you can't kill the person, by the way. There can be no taking of life. That's not necrophilia, that's murder, okay? So if your victim, if the deceased, what is it called? Decedent? What's it called?
Deceased, I think is
deceased. If the deceased
departed
is a hermit, the departed is a hermit and doesn't have a family, there's no debate. If you're not religious.
Well, Katie, I don't know how much support you're going to get, but I will give you a historical tidbit before we get into the debate. It was actually a practice in ancient Egypt. I've got this from a professor. I swear to God, I got this from a professor who supposedly knows his shit. It was not. It was a practice that if a attractive young person passed away early, untimely, that it was tradition that the community could do what they want.
Think about the community. Think about the group.
That actually was a thing in ancient Egypt, was not considered an immoral thing. So,
right. Well, I will say one thing, which is that this came from a very utilitarian moral place, because Matt was trying to, on Useful Idiots, and sorry, Ben, last Useful Idiots reference, and we'll get into Marcuse, however you say it. I said it French. He was German. Anyway. Matt was trying to get me with an "isn't that terrible?" Little did he know it would be "isn't that mind-blowing?" and question-provoking. And the terrible was that a cop was caught, I think, on his own body cam footage, molesting a corpse. And this was during the height of
opportunistically.
What'd you say?
Opportunistically, like he happened.
Oh, not coincidence. Oh yeah, he didn't stumble. It wasn't like a slapstick scene where someone falls onto.
He didn't kill the person. He
right, yeah, of course.
Yeah, he was responding to a call, and there was a dead woman there, and he,
right.
He
one thing led to another.
As those Egyptians, it's why let the situation go to waste?
Yeah, exactly.
What he was thinking.
But without even I was barely joking. I was kind of well, if there's going to be police brutality, I'd rather it be on a
dead person. That's what this was in the middle of all the stuff last summer. You were trying to make a point that if it's going to happen, it's better to happen to a dead person.
That's it. And then I started really questioning it. So we'll get into that. I'm going to just close my door. If you guys want to just Leslie, could you person the ship for 30 seconds? My dad likes to come in to the room I'm in. Just come in and futz around. So I'll be right back.
Yeah. Well, Kay's gone, so this is perfect time to get your plugs. And Benjamin, where can people find you and find your stuff?
Well, you can find me at benjaminstudebaker.com. That's my blog. I've also got a podcast called Political Theory 101, and I'm going to start another one soon that will be called The Lack with Helen Rollins and Nina Power.
All right, nice. And Matt, I'm sure most people know, but where can they find you?
Taibbi.substack.com, and then obviously Useful Idiots, which is at rollingstone.com as of now.
Yeah.
But mostly at Substack. So, we're going to talk Marcuse, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I never thought people would get so hot about a newsletter about a philosopher. I did not expect this to blow up and everybody to have such an opinion. But I am excited for this debate. I will, of course, since I have already mastered my topic, I will be sitting this one out and mostly just feeding my dog treats. But I'm very excited for this debate, Katie.
Yes, me too. And Ben is getting his. Ben, you are a political scientist.
Yeah.
Completing your PhD.
Yeah, it's finished now.
Oh, it's finished. Mazel tov.
Yeah. Congratulations.
When did you finish it?
I finished in October.
Okay. Well, I think when we had you on last, it was either October or no. It was a debate about voting for Biden.
Yeah.
Very heated debate. So let's see, Matt, do you want to share with people, and I was inspired by the RJ Matt debate that I saw. Do you want to share, and this is a friendly debate, guys, okay? Friends of the show, everyone is getting along. All right, so Matt, do you want to share why you wrote the piece that you wrote, and then Ben, why you wrote the response that you wrote?
So on Substack, we have kind of a crowdsourced method of determining what books that I review. I ask subscribers what they would like me to read, and there were a lot of people who wanted me to read, a variety of newer books, including like Ibram Kendi's book, and then somebody suggested, well, why don't you just read Marcuse, because a lot of these books, are kind of inspired by the same train of thought. And I had obviously read about him. I hadn't read any of his books or essays for quite a long time. So I decided to read One Dimensional Man, and then an essay collection that included the famous essay Repressive Tolerance, and I think the relevance of this essay for me is that it expresses a lot of something that you see on Twitter and on social media a lot these days, which is an argument that basically liberal freedoms, natural rights in liberal democracies aren't effective, and that the only way that we can secure real freedom or real progress is by the denial of rights to some. Basically, the kind of ironic title of repressive tolerance is that tolerating certain kinds of views is in itself intolerant, because it's an unfair fight. It gives legitimacy to illegitimate views, and therefore the only way to achieve true progress is to deny rights, or to deny speech rights and assembly rights and some other things to those antagonists. And this is tied in with some other beliefs that he has, that essentially what he really says is that people don't, sort of modern Americans, and you wrote this in 1965, don't have the conditions for true autonomy, political autonomy don't exist, because they're so overwhelmed by propaganda and the consumer instinct and some other things, that they're not really exercising freedom in any real sense. And so therefore we can't really speak of, we can't be too concerned about the denial of those freedoms, because they're not really they're not real. The conditions for those freedoms don't exist yet. So, I had a negative view of this mainly because I think what I've been hearing a lot, especially in the last couple of years, as kind of the content moderation and censorship movements have sort of taken off, is this argument, and I think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump, is, sort of free speech is a canard. We can't just allow unfettered free speech anymore. We have to try something else that involves deplatforming and some other things. And I disagree with that. And I was looking at this essay as kind of the Rosetta Stone of that kind of thinking. And I understand that some people disagree with it, but that was the take that I had.
Great. And Ben, do you want to talk about what prompted your response, which was not just to Matt, but it happened, I guess, that Matt's piece came out the same week that Nathan was judged an anti-Semite. And we, by the way, we exonerated him. We had a council of Bens. We did not include you, but Ben Spielberg and Ben Burgess, and Leslie was there too to add a kind of, non-Jewish lens. And we talked about it, we thought about it. It was very kind of rabbinical, and we determined that Nathan Robinson we acquitted him on the charges of anti-Semitism, but we sadly found him guilty of humor malpractice because he explained a tweet in a follow-up. He explained a joke that he tweeted in a follow-up tweet, and what made that especially unforgivable was, of course, that it didn't even provide him with any protection. So, there was no philosophical payoff or anything. But he's not an anti-Semite, just committed a humor offense. And you took on both Matt's analysis and Nathan's analysis. And so wanted to know, first of all, you can answer this at the same time as the other question, which is why you wrote this, but why you decided to talk about Nathan and Matt in the same piece.
Yeah, so I've noticed over the years that Matt and Nathan have tended to disagree a little bit about cancel culture.
Yeah.
And
we had Nathan on Useful Idiots once. Did not come up, though. Yeah.
I've tended to be very sympathetic to Matt. I really like a lot of what Matt has contributed to the discourse on this issue. I think it's important to have perspectives like Matt's on this issue. And I really don't like people knee-jerk accusing Matt of being right-wing because he criticized Marcuse, which is an example of everything that we need to stop doing. So I'm sympathetic to Matt in general. At the same time, I've been at Cambridge teaching this class, History of Political Thought, since 1890, and we do a couple of topics on the Frankfurt School. And one of the things that always gets me is that in the United States, people tend to read critical theory before they've read some of the stuff that precedes critical theory. And because they read these guys first, often the way they get read reflects the other stuff that they're already familiar with rather than the stuff which came earlier. And so I wanted to kind of contextualize historically where Marcuse was fitting in to the history of political thought and why it is that he had this kind of thought at this particular kind of time. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I think that really Marcuse, if he were around today, he would probably agree with Matt. And I think that he would view the contemporary cancel culture as itself another form of the right dominating the discourse.
Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. But all the same, I feel like his ideas have been appropriated. And he left the door open to do that because he wrote in a certain way. But I would like to hear the context, obviously.
Yeah. I think that his ideas have been very badly appropriated. And so the same thing which caused you to read him that way also causes the people who misuse him to read him in this way. They read him before they read the people who come before him, and they're not really familiar with, the Frankfurt School as a school and what it's responding to. So the Frankfurt School as a school, it's a group of Marxists who are witnessing the rise of the 30s state. So in the 30s, in response to the crisis of capitalism coming out of the Depression, we get a variety of different kinds of states which are much more involved in the management of the economy, right? And these states advance a variety of political economy solutions to the traditional crisis of capitalism model that comes down to us from Marx, right? So these guys are going, wait a minute, now the state is playing a very different role in the economy from the role which it previously played. What consequences does this have for the theory of history? Is the theory of history still useful? Can we still use it? Do we need to revise it or change it? Right? So coming into the 30s, a lot of work from people like Frankel is working on how has the state changed? How has the role of the state changed? And then as we move through the period, there's a focus on, okay, the state is powerful in the economy. It also has gained a lot of power in the culture, and it's shaping the culture much more heavily. And so out of this comes this idea of a kind of total society, this view of totalitarianism as just what capitalism has to come up with in the 30s to survive the crisis of the 30s. And so, of course, fascism and communism we all recognize as totalitarian solutions to the crisis of the 30s. But for these theorists, the New Deal and the post-war state in the West is also another state of that type, although a more, and Marcuse explicitly says, more humane state of that type. And coming out of this period, they go through blacklisting in the post-war era. And blacklisting involves something quite similar to cancel culture. You have a lot of people being informally deplatformed or denied opportunity for career advancement on the basis of their political views. This is being done informally by private actors, so it's not the state straightforwardly saying you can't be a communist, you can't be a member of a communist organization. Formally, there's tolerance for those views. But informally, all of these different organizations in society are denying jobs, opportunities, promotions, platforms to anybody who is perceived to be associated, including people who just defend the people who are perceived to be associated. It gets wider and wider. And I think we really are seeing something very similar now, and that the kind of woke cancel culture, it's a vehicle through which left-wing people can be accused of being right-wing, and through that, deplatformed and eliminated from the discourse. And so this set of stuff, which I think a lot of people on the right see as the machinery of the cultural Marxists to destroy conservatism, most of the time it's a vehicle for defending liberalism from the left, rather than defending, rather than an attack on conservative values from left-wing people. And I think that that's been the big misreading, and I think it's more or less ubiquitous. I don't think it's at all unusual to have that misreading. I think almost everyone now in the American context who comes into this stuff and approaches it starting with the later works is having that misreading. And so it's not at all something that would be your fault or a consequence of you being deliberate or ill-intentioned. It would just be because of the order in which you read the texts.
Yeah, I hear that, and I do agree that if Marcuse was here today, that he would not interpret things the same way. I think he would probably have a very negative view of a lot of what's going on. But the way that he wrote these texts allowed... My take on this is that basically, sort of centrist, kind of neoliberal, capitalists have appropriated this language, and they have taken from it what is useful to them, because there are illiberal ideas in these texts, right? The idea that there are limits on the utility of free speech, free assembly, that we are in a moment of extreme danger. This is something that Marcuse stresses in Repressive Tolerance a lot. The exact line is, such extreme suspension of the right of free speech and free assembly is indeed justified only if the whole of society is in extreme danger. I maintain that our society is in such an emergency situation and that it has become the normal state of affairs. Now, I can understand why he might write that in 1965. We're going into Vietnam. We've had the blacklists. We had the Red Scare. There were a variety of, we had the secret police infiltrating everything from the SDS to the weathermen to whatever it was. Still, the language that he uses is, of emergency, of totalitarianism. I'm not sure that it fit even then, but whatever. Let's leave that aside. What's happened now is that people have taken that construction and they've said, well, look what happened. Donald Trump got elected, and we're this close to total peril, to the the death of democracy, and therefore we need to start suspending rights because it's the only way to prevent it, to save the republic. And so I doubt that would have been the prescription of this actual thinker, projected forward to the present. All the same, though, there are people who are taking that rhetorical argument and they're using it to advance a justification for what I think is a whole series of illiberal policies that are coming down the pipeline. And for me, you see the contradiction with people who speak like this, but then at the same time, it's who are the people who are using this kind of language now? It's Nancy Pelosi, it's the CEOs of these big companies, who are pretending to be, the friends of, oppressed peoples. And so that's the thing that triggers me with this text. And maybe he didn't intend it that way, but it evolved that way.
Yeah, there's definitely been misappropriation of Marcuse, also of Habermas. Habermas has been heavily used, and later career Habermas has heavily used earlier career Habermas to benefit liberalism. There's definitely been a huge amount of appropriating, definitely. Of course, when we look at German intellectuals of this generation, almost regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum, they advance ideas like this. Karl Popper advances the paradox of tolerance. F.A. Hayek says we can abridge democracy and liberalism to defend the market, right? So in a context where you have even avowed liberals saying the state has got to be much more aggressive and take a much larger role to protect the market, and where the neoliberal era becomes technocratizing of more and more parts of the state, taking more and more parts of the state out of the hands of democratic control, you can see how there would be a thought that, well, we've already kind of lost the free and open space, which in the childhood of these German theorists they might have supposed to have had in the Weimar context, that's already long gone, and that therefore all they can do is struggle over this ever-shrinking space. Now, I think that you're right that has been appropriated and used largely to defend liberalism, and I think that this is the big mistake that people make, is in thinking that they can use censorship for a left-wing purpose, because the left is by definition the weaker faction, with less wealth, less power, less political influence. So when the left legitimizes the use of
and he says that
power,
in the text, by the way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and exactly, he says this in the text.
And we say this on Useful Idiots like every week. And
right.
I bring up Palestinians as the best example.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're at an institutional disadvantage. And that's the argument that he's making repeatedly, that the left is at this increasing institutional disadvantage, and it has to do something to construct institutions for itself so that it can survive and develop. And of course, what ends up happening is that it's the right that ends up using this. It's the right which ends up building all the think tanks in the 70s. It's the right which ends up capturing the universities, capturing everything. But because the Democrats are perceived to be left-wing, and this is all done in the name of Democrats, in the name of a left-wing or of liberals or progressives, it's seen to be a left-wing offensive when it is really an offensive of the right.
Can I ask a question? And there's also some other points, but before we move off from the censorship question, something that a lot of people will say when I'm trying to make the point that this harms the left more than the right, and bring up the kind of power imbalance, is people who, not libs, but like leftists with whom I share more, with whom I have more in common politically, in general, will say something like, yeah, but they already do that to the left, so why not like let people catch up with the right? Like, they already censor us, they already shut us down, they already shut us out. So good, if they're going to do so right now, why not? And I know the answer partly is that it's then going to be pointed to justify more repression. I think philosophically that's how I see it, but what is the historical precedent for that? Is that a thing that the right wing points to it, or is it just logical that the more it's done, the more acceptable it becomes, and given that it is weighted towards the right, the left will be that much more silenced?
Well, part of the way this works is that the left is always much more marginalized than anybody thinks it is, and even more marginalized than people on the left themselves realize it is. So when people on the left go, well, why can't we use this? Well, what institutional power do you think that you have that you would use? And whoever you point to, odds are they're actually liberals, and they're not you. And if they're going to pretend to be doing it on your behalf, maybe to get you to vote for them or to support them, but they're not doing it on your behalf. They're doing it on their behalf. And the thing that has been really pernicious over the last 50 years in particular is the Democratic Party has more and more just become straightforwardly a right-wing party with a different aesthetic, is that it's very easy to conceal the right-wing character of this stuff if it's done under the left-wing aesthetic of the liberal Democratic Party or the progressive movement. And they've gotten better and better at dressing up right-wing stuff in increasingly radical aesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing about that, though, that concerns me about this text is that, yes, a lot of these German thinkers, and they did seem to have, from their experience with the Weimar government, seem to have very little confidence in the ability of liberal democracies to protect people, and that's totally understandable. And in that context, it makes a lot of sense. But there's an argument that's pervasive both in this book, I mean, in this essay and in One Dimensional Man, that sort of the ordinary person lacks the autonomy to make informed political decisions, and therefore there must be a kind of a political vanguard that has to act on their behalf. And I worry about that because that's also a vogue idea now. This idea that we have too much democracy. Look what happens when the rabble is allowed to make decisions. It's very pervasive in journalism, this idea, because the ethos of our business used to be, well, we get the information, we give it to you, and then you do with it what you will. Now it's completely the opposite. Now people make the calculation, well, how are people going to receive this information? And we have to package it for them in a way that guarantees that they make the right decision with this information. And so I worry a lot about that mindset. I do see it a little bit in this text, and I feel like it's a lack of a lack of faith in the ability of people to make informed decisions, and really only trusting people who have a certain level of intellectual accomplishment or education. And that too, I feel like, has been appropriated. So I was wondering what you thought about that, Benjamin.
Yeah, so I don't think it's so much a lack of trust in people as it is this belief that the state during the 30s turned into some kind of super monster thing. So for people who grew up before the 30s, the kind of state that we get coming out of the 30s in all of its forms, including the Western form, is a grotesque totalizing thing which overdetermines and exercises enormous formative power over everybody, right? So this emphasis that the late Frankfurt School has on ideology and on the domination of instrumental reason, the kind of reason which comes out of capitalism in the modern state, their thought is that this, at this point, has become so total and so vast and so huge that the ordinary person is being propagandized and brainwashed incredibly heavily to the point where that person's autonomy has been stolen from them. So I wouldn't pitch it as they don't believe that the ordinary person is capable, but the ordinary person has been crushed by a rapidly expanding system, and because it has changed so much over their lifespan, they're imagining that it's going to develop at that same pace on into the future in perpetuity. And a lot of those sci-fi books from this era, like George Orwell's 1984, they're imagining a state that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, very, very rapidly, very, very quickly, massively, massively bigger, because that's what they've observed. And so their whole vision about where we're going and what's going to happen is based on this very rapid change, similar to retrofuturism and that emphasis on very rapid technological change because the change in living standards between the 20s and the 60s. So I think that kind of explains where they're coming from. Of course, people more recently have taken this and gone, we can really use this, we can really leverage it. And so they teach it to students in universities before they've given the students the background on the other stuff that's happened, and often without ever giving the students the background on what else has happened. Because if you give students who are vaguely liberal, they want to be radical, but they don't really know what it would mean to be radical because they grew up in a liberal education system, have been socialized heavily with liberal values. If you give those people just a little bit of late Frankfurt School stuff, and you hide from them all of the earlier work, then they're going to basically adopt Frankfurt School-y tactics in the service of progressive liberalism.
Is that called hide the Frankfurt? Adjacent to hide the salami? Sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, you could.
You're welcome, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so okay, but that's what worries me, right? Because we've already talked about how traditionally the left is always going to be overwhelmed. They're going to have the least power, institutionally of any of the groups, and to my mind, and this is the way I was raised, also to think, the last line of defense for any normal person, whether they're left or whatever their political orientation is, but probably particularly leftist, is the guarantees of individual rights that we do have in this country, right? And what I feel like what these texts, what's happening with these texts, is you're taking a lot of young, idealistic people who want to affect change, and they're volunteering to give up the things that would protect them the most, right? Because they think that this is what's going to be necessary to affect change, and so they don't value those rights, and I guess that's why that's probably what informed my particularly hostile treatment of this writer. But yeah, that's my fear underlying all this.
To a large degree, those rights get used to legitimate things which we would think of as not being in the spirit of those rights, but which are not formally legally protected by those rights, right? So we're bothered by all of these infringements on free speech. But of course, if we make it an argument in terms of free speech or the First Amendment, the first thing everyone says is, well, Twitter and Facebook are private platforms. Your employer is private. These companies are private. That public-private distinction is used to be able to say, well, you live in a free society because you have the First Amendment. But in almost none of the places where you talk is it public space where the First Amendment can meaningfully be applied to you. So we have the First Amendment, so we think we're free, but everywhere we talk is not protected by the First Amendment. And in this way, the First Amendment becomes a vehicle for legitimizing all of that informal censorship. And I think that's the crux of what's really gone wrong with those rights. Now, that's not to say that those rights aren't a good thing. Indeed, Marcuse himself says, the tolerance which was the great achievement of the liberal era, right?
Right.
There is this emphasis on this is the really valuable thing, that you could, in public space, say whatever you wanted. But because all of this space has been privatized and carved up, there's no longer a place where it really is public space. And even stuff that you say nominally in public space can be taken to your employer and treated as if it was said in their space.
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with that, and it's frustrating to me that when I have debates about free speech, or when Katie and I have them with people, that's often the go-to response. Oh, these are private companies; they're free to do what they want, which is it's amusing because the people who are saying this are frequently the people who 10 years ago would have been saying exactly the opposite about any other kind of gigantic mega corporation, right? They would have been against Citizens United or whatever it was, but the spirit that underlies the idea behind all these protections, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom to vote, any of these things. Yes, we're living in a society that where the public sphere is increasingly completely privatized. So that's new. We don't have a good system for protecting people in that world. But what bothers me is that people don't value the concept, regardless of what the technical legal situation is, they don't value the concept of free debate, free speech, the right to speak, and what the difference is between, not having that ability at all and actual, and Marcuse's idea that this is totalitarianism. I mean, I I understand the argument that people are overwhelmed by all these other factors in our society, but there's a major difference between literal totalitarianism and what happens in the United States in the worst situation.
It's
Can I
hard
just
for
say,
us
breaking news, sorry to pause this. I don't know if people saw, but apparently we have, and I bring this up because Ben, you and Nathan had a debate about this, and you had a debate on my show about this, which is who was worse, more of a threat, Biden or Trump. And one of your arguments was that Biden is more of a hawk than Trump. And it looks like we just bombed, Syria? Let me just get this right. U.S. carries out airstrike in Syria after rocket attacks. The strike was defensive in nature, writes Politico, but was a response to the 3 attacks endangering Americans in Iraqi this month. It says in Iraqi. Let me take a screenshot of that, just so we see that it was written that way. President Joe Biden ordered an airstrike on facilities used by Iran-backed militia groups in eastern Syria on Thursday night in response to 3 separate rocket attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq, according to a Pentagon spokesperson. Oh, Matt, this is exactly what you love.
According to the unnamed, according to a source familiar with the matter.
Yeah. And related to the Pentagon or the intelligence community. The strikes destroyed several facilities at a border control point used by a number of Iran-backed militia groups linked to the attacks against U.S. forces in Iraq, including Kataib Hezbollah and Kataib Saeed al-Shuhada, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said in a statement. These strikes were authorized in response to recent attacks against American and coalition personnel in Iraq and to ongoing threats to those personnel. The airstrikes were designed to damage the militia group's ability to conduct future attacks, a defense official told Politico. The U.S. military alone carried out the operation without the aid of allies. Hold on, I just want to share the article I'm actually reading. However, Kirby said the U.S. conducted the strike together with diplomatic measures, including consultation with coalition partners. The operation sends an unambiguous message. President Biden will act to protect American and coalition personnel. At the same time, we've acted in a deliberate manner that aims to de-escalate the overall situation in both eastern Syria and Iraq. Reuters first reported the news. The retaliatory strike comes more than a week after a dozen rockets believed to be linked to Iran-backed militia groups targeted coalition forces outside Ibril International Airport, killing 1 non-U.S. contractor and wounding 9 more people, including 5 Americans. Then on Saturday, at least 4 rockets struck Balad Air Base, which houses American contractors who provide support to Iraq's fleet of U.S.-made F-16 fighter jets, wounding 1 person. And on Monday, 2 rockets fell near the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad inside the green zone. No injuries or casualties were reported. Biden initially faced criticism for not immediately pinning blame for the attacks on Iran, which has frequently carried out similar strikes against U.S. and coalition troops in Iraq. Some have been fatal. The decision to strike in Syria instead of Iraq was likely made to avoid causing issues for the Iraqi government, which remains a partner in the counterterrorism fight against ISIS, said Mick Mulroy, a former Pentagon official who oversaw Middle East issues. Mulroy advised the Biden team during the transition at the Pentagon. The strikes were likely calculated and scaled to avoid any escalation, while sending a message that Iran's use of militias as proxies will not allow them to avoid responsibility, Mulroy added. Thursday strikes come as the Biden administration strives to renew negotiations with Iran after former President Trump withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal, sparking escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. The U.S. maintains 900 troops in Syria and has no immediate plans to reduce the number, according to 2 other defense officials. The troops are there to support local forces fighting ISIS remnants, but also to serve as a buffer against Iranian influence. Wow, there's a lot to unpack in that.
My guess is that there was probably some kind of bad domestic news about to come down the pipeline, and they just did this to...
Like Neera not getting confirmed, maybe?
Right, I don't know, and I'm kidding, but...
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not, Bill Clinton, that was what did he do? He bombed, Wasn't that what? There was some
No,
Monica-fueled Iraq thing, or was that
or
Sudan?
was that Ricky Ray, the Ricky Ray
Pharmaceuticals? Yeah.
execution?
Right.
That's two different things, actually. Yeah, he
Yeah.
did do a bombing to distract from what we called at the time his sex scandals. That is true. But he also he executed Ricky Ray Rector during the campaign to make
Right.
sure that people knew he was tough on crime. So he wasn't even president yet before he murdered.
But
his
he was
first
already being
manager.
presidential.
Yes, by murdering people. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Most presidential thing you can do. Today is the day Joe Biden became president because he hasn't done shit in the past month since.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
You're
right.
right.
That's right.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah, the ominous line there for me is that the U.S. has no immediate plans to reduce the number of, because that probably means they're going to increase the number.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but so here we are. Yeah. Well,
So what do you
maybe
expect
we'll,
from the guy who tried to soft partition Iraq?
right.
I mean, on the other hand, though, Ben, he does have a different kind of background. You know, he once went to South Africa and was arrested while visiting Nelson Mandela, by which he means he went through an airport security checkpoint, and was separated from his party because it was apartheid, and he's white, and he was with African Americans. So, but that's kind of like an arrest. He was
Yeah.
stopped.
I mean, you could probably interpret it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate when I'm arrested
While he was
by
separated
an
from that
airport.
party, I'm sure that party had to look at the empty chair that he would have been sitting in.
Yeah, exactly. Clint Eastwood was there, yeah. I hate when TSA arrests me. Makes me, you know.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of the. So who came down on the side of Biden or Trump being worse? Was that actually a debate you had?
Ben did. I mean, for not even you were saying we would be worse off with Biden president.
Overall,
with
long
Trump.
term.
Overall, long
For
term,
yeah.
Yeah.
because of the hawkishness in part.
In part, and just in general, because I think that Biden will make the country more right wing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the aggressive foreign policy thing is pretty conspicuous with this crew, right? But I mean, would they go to war with Iran, or I can't imagine that.
I doubt anybody's going to do that.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm moved by the beauty of what did Brian Williams quote Leonard Cohen? Say?
Oh yeah, the beauty of our weapons
our
or something
missiles,
like that.
weapons,
Yeah,
yeah.
that weirdly tumescent kind of quote of his was.
Yeah.
Remember that? Who was it that completely lost all sense of decorum when they were looking at the Moab footage? Was that Geraldo Rivera?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. They were like watching it on TV, and they were just
I think it was the CNN guy. Wolf
CNN?
Blitzer.
Wolf
I think it was
Blitzer.
Wolf Blitzer.
Yeah, outstanding,
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, this was a great debate. You guys have to come back
It
on.
was, yes, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry I can't stay on longer.
No, it's
Ben,
okay.
this was great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I thought your piece was really smart, actually, and
Let's do it
I
again.
would love to talk some other time. But thanks so much for having
Thanks,
me on,
Matt.
Katie. Yep.
Thank you.
See you
Talk to you
soon.
All right.
Bye, Matt. Thanks, Ben. That was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was
Of
fun.
course, yeah. And you're in Cambridge now, or
I'm in the States right now. I'm in
you're in the
Indiana.
States? Okay. Great. And where are you from? You have a Midwestern.
Northwest Indiana, a little town called Valparaiso, about an hour southeast of Chicago.
Oh, like the Argentine town?
Yeah,
Same.
it's a different kind of Vale of Paradise, I can tell you
right.
that.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course Brian Williams misinterpreted that lyric. It's like when people quote "Born in the USA" and they think that it's a pro-USA song, you know. Although, oh my God, Leslie, we are going to cancel someone this weekend. Do you know who that is?
Who?
Bruce Springsteen.
Hell yeah, you gonna cancel him?
Uh-huh.
Why?
Look, I uncanceled. We uncanceled Woody Guthrie. We sure as hell are gonna cancel the boss, First of all, he's management, the boss. You can't get away with that. Second of all, you can't do a podcast, a limited podcast with Obama. You can't do one episode.
I'm not a fan of either Obama or Bruce Springsteen doing podcasts. Podcasts is supposed to be independent medium. I'm not a fan of all these celebrities getting into it. In fact, I might have a bone to pick with Kate Willett, because I feel like those comedians invited all the celebrities in, and now the celebrities won't go away. And I think we need to hold Kate and her ilk accountable for
We
that.
got to call him out.
Yes.
Yeah. And let me just show a photo of it. To me, it's not Bruce Springsteen as a lone actor. It's the cooperation with Obama. And it was one thing for Bruce Springsteen to sing at Obama's inauguration. Was it the first or the second inauguration? Do you guys remember? I think it was the first. I'm hoping it was the first.
I mean, if I was
Pete
in
Seeger.
position, you probably want to get the white guys in the first one, I would assume.
Yeah. And Pete Seeger was there, and they did sing one of the forbidden, coming full circle, Woody Guthrie songs. But, here's the image. Trigger warning. It's not a good look, guys. And remember, Obama is one of the worst people. That's just how I describe him. Because we all thought for a while, a couple seconds, we thought he was good. And what has he done? He's come out of retirement to do what? To smash Keith Ellison's campaign. So to destroy Keith Ellison, to destroy Bernie Sanders, to stop the NBA from going on strike, right? And go windsurfing with, what's his name, Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, yes.
So I'm not a
He's done
fan.
much else. Yeah.
He's done other terrible things I can't remember, but
Oh, he's got a big
Destroying Libya.
Netflix deal. He got a big Netflix deal.
no. Yep. What did you say, Ben?
Destroying Libya.
Oh no, but that was while he was president. We're talking about
Oh,
his
yeah.
posts. Yes. Oh, of course. During president, started new wars, destroyed Libya. Yeah. So I'm just saying the things that he actually left his mansion in Martha's Vineyard to do.
Yeah, he signed a Netflix deal, made a documentary. I think it won awards. Yeah, he keeps putting out those lists of what he watches and listens to that are obviously phony. I don't think there's any way that Obama is sitting down and watching The Boys superhero TV show. I think that was a deal they struck with Amazon to get some promo.
I still can't figure out where it was he paid tribute to him. But, oh, wait, hold on. It was 2009. Yeah, it was the first one. I believe. Yeah. Beyonce, Mary J., Bon Jovi, Garth Brooks, Sheryl Crow, Renee Fleming, Caleb Green, Josh Groban, I'm looking to see, James Taylor, U2, Usher, will.i.am, and Stevie Wonder. And the concert featured... Wait, is there a Seeger or what? Someone can look it up and tell us in the comments. Marissa Tomei quoted Ronald Reagan.
Oh, where are you
Okay.
trying to find?
Which inauguration it was that Pete Seeger sang at. He probably died before the second one anyway. But, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. Come back. Would love to have you back on.
For sure, anytime.
Yeah. Actually, one question before you leave. One question.
Yeah?
What is the significance, or what do you think that I'm trying to argue very forcefully and unapologetically that Neera Tanden's tweets are indeed relevant. Not because she was mean, but because they reveal something she does and something other media and political elites do, which is that they weaponize identity politics to undermine and attack, to push policies that undermine and attack the very disenfranchised groups they claim to champion. So, I'm just working through it. Leslie and I will talk about it. If you have anything to say about it, no, you don't have to now. You can think about it.
Well, yeah, I think that it's a classic example of appropriating discourses which maybe nominally begin in left-wing spaces, taking them and moving them in a very liberal direction. And then, because it's being done in the name of ostensibly oppressed or marginalized groups, trying to get away with it on that basis.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to announce that these are Cambridge backed. I offer a Cambridge back analysis. I'm just kidding. But thank you so much. And where can people find you?
BenjaminStudebaker.com, my podcast, Political Theory 101, and my new upcoming podcast, The Lack.
Cool. All right.
With
the
Helen
lack?
Rollins and Nina Power. Yeah.
The lag or the lack?
The Lack.
All right. Like CK?
Yep, CK.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Bye, Ben.
Thanks.
And we are going to, you know what? We're going to take we're going to take a 30-second break because I have to use the facilities, but we're bringing on an amazing guest, Kate Willett. In fact, Nick, can we play Kate Willett's, the trailer for Dirtbag Anthropology while we do a costume change, by which I mean bathroom visit? Let's see. Not sure if we can because I don't see Nick. Hold on. One second. Let me just do it. I think I can do it. This is my favorite part of the show.
Figuring out doing it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's like really I just feel so comfortable doing it, and it's like really, it builds in a nice like sense of suspense and despair, frustration, fear, paralysis. What else?
If there's no suspense, there's no point in having the show.
I mean, that's what I think. Yeah, that's kind of what I think. All right. This is okay. You know what? Leslie, I'm going to welcome Kate on, then I must use the facilities.
Okay.
And then you guys can talk, and you actually can call her out for doing what she's done to podcasts. So I'm going to bring in Kate. Kate is the host of Reply Guys podcast. She is a prolific comedian, and put whatever you want in your bio if you'd like to add your Twitter handle or your latest album. And then let me see if we can hear you. I think we cannot, but I will unmute you. Okay, there it is. You have to unmute yourself, actually.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Great.
Awesome.
It's
so nice to see you. I don't have any idea what I'm getting called out for.
Oh, well, that's why I wanted to give you some alone time with Leslie. So I'm going to I'm going to mute myself and unplug.
Got it.
Yeah, I was just remarking on the fact that Obama and Bruce Springsteen have a podcast now, and so all the celebrities. Yes, and so all the celebrities are doing podcasts, and I blame comedians for inviting them all in. It was just supposed to be independent, and then comedy. So I wanted to call you out as a representative of comedians who do podcasts for inviting the celebrities. And John Hamm was the one. I remember when he started coming on the shows, and then it was the floodgates were open. Then you got Charlize Theron with a podcast, and like everything's going.
That's really like, podcasts are supposed to be for people who cannot be in movies,
Yes.
Like, it's like, why do you want to see Charlize Theron? Like, why don't you want to see Charlize Theron? She's so beautiful. Like, yeah. I'm not saying that, like, I'm not knocking podcasters, but it's like, I'm a 7. I'm a podcast 8, maybe, right? But like,
you get an extra point for a podcast.
Yeah, yeah. But if I had like movies to be shooting or whatever, of course I would be doing that.
Yes, obviously. But I guess they, since they don't have a choice now, they're like all getting into our industry, and it's really unfortunate, really upsetting, frankly, to see.
That is,
like, how are we going to compete? Like, some of them are getting on Twitch. Some of them are on YouTube. What's their Alexandra Daddario. I'm butchering her name, but I think she was on, what is it, True Detective as the girlfriend, and she has like a YouTube channel with with Garfunkel or Oates. I forget which one it is. Not Garfunkel or the comedians. I forget which one. she has like a YouTube page, and because they're roommates, and then she's just like a regular YouTuber, but also like a superstar celebrity in big time movies.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm like still trying to figure out like what's Twitch, you know? These people are so ahead of me. Yeah.
It's very easy when you have assistants. When you
Yeah,
have
that's true.
someone who works for you can just tell them what to do.
But Leslie, I think what was Kate? I feel like you were calling Kate in, maybe.
Yeah.
Because what is her role? Is it just she's just complicit as a comedian? Is that what you're saying?
As a comedian, I'm just saying all the comedians they started inviting all the comedians, the actors who think they're funny, like John Hamm. He is pretty funny, so but you're still, right. He's too handsome to be on podcasts, and they invite all the beautiful people on, and now we're stuck.
Well, I mean, look at us. How are we? We can't exactly be mad at them for.
Katie Halper's been on my podcast. She's a celebrity. Yes.
Kate's been on mine. Leslie's been on mine. Beautiful people. So tell us about your new, I keep wanting to say comedy album, but it's actually an Audible original.
Yeah, it's an Audible original. So it's sort of a cross between an audiobook and like a limited run podcast. And what it is a series of like mini episodes about masculinity from all different like areas of life. And essays and interviews on that topic. So I kind of went through, sort of like all of the main areas where I feel like I've thought a lot about masculinity, like fatherhood and the internet and, friendship, politics. And I wrote like personal essays about these topics, about men in my life, my relationships with them, and then I also interviewed people, including comedians, including celebrities like Margaret Cho. So yeah, I am complicit. But it's a fun project because the reason I called it Dirtbag Anthropology is because I was married to a woman until my mid-20s, and then when we parted ways, I was like trying to figure out how to date guys, and like I was just so horrified that I had to approach it like research, and evolution of what it became is this. But yeah, I think for folks who are kind of more into political stuff, there's definitely a lot of that in the book. There's I got some socialist stuff even on a very corporate platform, so please go give it a listen.
Yeah, and also Kate is someone herself is both political and comedic, obviously, and really like did this amazing piece that I'm sure we've had Kate on before and we've talked about this, but this really beautiful piece called "I Hated Bernie Bros Until I Loved and Lost One." Is that my quote? Is that the correct title?
Yeah, and that was an essay I wrote for Elle. I guess it was like a little bit more than a year ago now, this month. And I wrote about that stuff in the book as well, about specifically like how losing someone very, very close to me because of, systemic forces and capitalism really changed my perspective on both politics and feminism. And that is that's a big part of the book. I luckily was able to talk about it for longer because you don't have as short of a word limit in an audiobook.
Right.
And interview also some other people that were really influential to me in my life, friends that I talked with a lot during that time and stuff. So it was a cool project.
Yeah, and this is just to, I mean, do you want to summarize it or I can summarize it, but what that piece was about?
You can summarize it.
It was about your kind of falling in love with with your then boyfriend, and your fellow comedian, and
your fellow comedian, yeah,
yeah,
that's what we call each other.
Yeah, right. My significant fellow comedian, and kind of fighting about Bernie and Bernie Bros, and then through his death realizing why there was so much urgency and anger around Medicare for all, around healthcare. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary of it. And I mean, A thing that I kind of thought about a lot the year after that is just like the theme of conflict in general, because like it's just I mean, like, obviously from a Marxist perspective, there's class conflict all the time, and that's like, it's a huge shaping force in history, but also like involved in that is just a lot of interpersonal conflict, and like, how do we handle that well? How do we handle it gracefully? And so what I wanted to do is like think about the theme of masculinity, and kind of like, there's all this stuff about it from like a very lib perspective online of like, hey guys, don't sexually harass people. Have you ever thought about not sexually harassing people? And I've just always found that really reductive. So, I wanted to kind of give this idea of what is a good man, like what is a really fair shake, in my opinion, like looking at both, economic, and cultural forces, and it was a cool thing to get to work on.
And let's is it cool if we play the
absolutely,
the trailer? Okay.
Hi, I'm Kate Willett. I'm a stand-up comic.
Can you guys hear?
I've spent a lot of my career writing jokes about men and what it's like to date them.
Because everyone really thinks it's super easy for women to get laid. And I just think that anyone who thinks that should give me back the hours of my life that I've spent listening to opinions on aliens.
I guess I write a lot of jokes about men because masculinity is super funny right now. We're in a moment where we're all so uncertain about what masculinity is supposed to be, whether there's too much of it or not enough, whether it's toxic. Nobody quite knows what to do. No one knows what to expect. And although this can sometimes lead to tragedy, it can also be hilarious. Maybe because I talk about dudes so much, a lot of people have asked me to clear up all that masculinity stuff for them. They want to know what it means to be a good man in the age after Me Too. This book is my attempt to answer that question. I may not be a fancy academic, but as a comic, I'm at least a dirtbag anthropologist. Whether that means I study dirtbags or whether it means I myself am very low budget, you decide. This is kind of a self-help book. I will provide you with many helpful tips, and there are lots of expert interviews with fun people like W. Kamau Bell and Margaret Cho and Pastor Nadia Boltz-Weber. But it's also a memoir, because in order to talk about this question in a real way, I had to talk about how specific men have shaped me. My dad, my brother, my first kisses, my church friends, the men I had sex with and fell desperately in love with, and one particular man who I loved and lost. It's kind of a surprising story because, fun fact, I used to be married to a woman and I never planned on dealing with any of you guys. Dirtbag Anthropology. Listen only on Audible.
So that's Leslie.
Excuse me, Kate. I just want to say, as a man, thank you.
That's
so
the reaction I was expecting
for you really taking the time and diving in because most in your position would just like not bother and give up, but you have decided to give us your attention and a chance. And I think I speak for all men, especially all the ones in the chat, especially every single man in the chat right now on the Katie Halper show, who should be able to handle a little bit of gentle ribbing.
Yeah.
I want to thank
for her
Kate
pleasure
for your very funny comedic work about masculinity. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I felt that men on the internet would respond well. That's what I was expecting.
A lot of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, I know that there's gonna be a lot of people that are super mad about this book because, I mean, just anything that like says feminist, men, anything like, people are just expecting a certain kind of thing. But I don't know. I don't actually think that this book probably is the thing that those people are mad mad at. Like,
No.
I think it's really kind of compassionate and fair. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I listened to the first chapter earlier today, and it's just really really funny. I enjoyed it. It's not what the people who are mad, pre-mad in the chat already rolling their eyes. Oh, a woman's writing about like. It's good. They're trying. You should be able to take this. Okay,
Yeah.
you should be
Man
able
up.
to man up. Well, maybe that, I don't know. Maybe that is toxic masculinity in of itself to say.
Yeah, but I kind of like reclaiming it. I mean, I like appealing to people who use that as a frame. Like if that's your thing, if that's your like framing, then yeah, let's I'll take that framing and raise you.
I did interview a lot of men in the book. There's a lot of men talking in the book. So yeah, noted that, when writing a book about masculinity, that is perhaps a time when, for once, we should let men talk. And I did that for them. I platformed men.
Yeah. You gave them a voice. Yeah.
Yes.
And so, okay. Serious question we got, Kate.
Okay.
From Bill Cole. Kate Willett, any dating tips for a 51-year-old male, newly divorced? Serious question.
I feel like that depends. Like, I don't know, because a lot of the dating tips that I would give would be like sort of easier in a non-COVID world. I feel like once the pandemic is over, it's going to be a very, very social time. And so I would say that, like, fall, maybe even late summer, winter, like just go to a lot of social activities, meetups. Like, people are going to be so excited to be out and about, and like, just enjoy connecting with people for the first time in 18 months or 2 years or whatever. And I don't know. I think it'll happen on its own. You meet people when you least expect it.
That is true. That's true. But you got to be open at the same time. It's a careful balance. Gordon Gnome, Leslie, you'll appreciate this given earlier on. If Bill was dead, Katie would date him.
Oh, because of your necrophilia thing?
Yeah.
I'm a Useful Idiots listener. I am not all caught up, but I did listen once for like 4 weeks in a row, and every week it was necrophilia.
I mean, eventually I had to like tone it down because the anti-necrophilia lobby is strong.
Yeah. It's just like, I just wasn't expecting that to be a theme of your podcast, and I feel like
Me neither. No, I really didn't. I didn't. Like, it was totally, as I was talking about this earlier on the show with Matt Taibbi, and it was like, I just kind of rolled into it.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like people are, like, people who tune into Useful Idiots or finding out about the podcast are probably like, Katie Halper, Matt Taibbi. There's going to be a lot of focus on, free speech and free expression on this podcast. They're going to say the stuff that they're not supposed to say, and you do.
There you go.
But it's necrophilia. So then
it includes
they're like,
necrophilia, yeah.
Careful what you wish for.
And it includes open sharkophobia.
Sharkophobia. I haven't even really.
Oh yeah, people get really. It's funny the things that people. I guess people really like when you're like, when it's a real fringe or niche. Like, I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just I realize that, like, the more fringe, the more, I guess it's like cultish. I've cultivated a cult following for my necrophilia and shark positions, and I just hate sharks basically. And there's a lot of shark apologia. And I bring this up because
you hate sharks?
Oh yeah, they should be gotten rid of.
What? Wait, whoa, why?
Good question from Trevor South. What about an undead shark? I wouldn't mind a dead shark. I mean, I just want to make sure people know that I have no interest. And then when I say it, I feel like people think it's like I'm covering, protect.
You're arguing for sharkicide is what it
low
sounds
key.
like you're arguing.
I mean, look, I'll say this. They're ugly. They're really ugly. So I'm already triggered.
Some
Not all sharks?
Not all sharks are ugly. There's some cute sharks.
Okay, well, you guys wait till tomorrow's Useful Idiots. You're going to see something really interesting related to sharks. But I just find them very ugly and very scary. I have an irrational fear of them. Like sometimes even when I'm swimming in a swimming pool or like in a bath and I close my eyes in either one, and think of a shark, I get scared. So it's an irrational fear. But on this one episode of our show, there was a woman who got just nipped by a shark, like a little bite. And the first thing she said was like, sharks are beautiful. She was Australian. And what kind of culture do we live in where the first thing you say after being attacked by a shark is sharks are beautiful? That's like Stockholm Syndrome.
What? No, it's like we don't belong there. That's their home. We don't have gills. We should leave the sharks. If you're, I'm sorry, but if you've been bitten by a shark.
Do dolphins have gills? Do whales have gills?
Okay, fair point.
Do otters?
But they don't have scuba gear either. They don't have boats either. That is where the sharks belong. So if you're down there and you get bitten by a shark, like that's the risk you take, especially if you're Australian. I mean, come on, people Australia, like they expect to be bitten by savage.
It's like animals. a rite of passage. Yeah. Kate, I'm sorry. I know you have to run out soon, and I'm sorry that like the shark stuff is stuff. That
I just don't have I don't really know that much about sharks.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying I should have waited. But tell us why you wrote this book. Like, how did this even come up? And do you think of it as a book? Like, is there a written manuscript that's just not published?
There is a written manuscript that is not published, and the written manuscript that is half published is I don't know. Couple hundred pages, it's a book.
So you're going to turn it into a book?
I don't know. I mean, well, I might do something else with it. I'm not sure, or maybe a modification. But I think,
podcast?
Well, this kind of is what the podcast version of it would be,
right?
It's because it has it's essays and then it's interviews. It's something that is really only possible in an audiobook format. And that's what I think, I don't know, I came up in the experimental theater community, and a big thing with theater was for a while at least was site specific performances. So I always think it's a really cool thing to think about, where you're creating something and then create something that's really specific for that. And this, I pitched this for the first time right at Me Too, right when that was happening, a couple months after Harvey Weinstein was outed as being a serial sexual predator. And at that time it just felt okay, there's a lot to say about what are healthier expectations for men and stuff. But then the fact that it took a while to get started on the project, because pitching something is a whole thing. And then by the time I started writing it, I was in a relationship with Raghav.
Who's Kate's late boyfriend.
Yeah. And then I started writing the book. Then in the middle of writing the book, all this stuff happened that was in that essay. And it was just a really freaking horrible year, 2019. And then, I was working on, I kind of took a break from it. I came back to it end of 2019, 2020, and wrote most of the book during 2020. And it was very much about what those couple years of life had been and how they actually changed my point of view on a lot of things. And that was cool because I felt the process of my own feminism and thoughts about men and masculinity just evolved so much through writing the book, both politically and also interpersonally. So I don't know, it was it was a good time to be writing it because my mind was truly open.
And how much of it was written during pandemic?
Most of it was written during the pandemic. Yeah. I mean, I had some drafts and but yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, at least the final draft of everything was written during the pandemic, and a lot of the book was written for the first time during the pandemic. So it has, it has the experiences of COVID and this year, and just like all that stuff is really in it. I think if you listen to it right now, it's super contemporary, which is kind of a cool thing, because like with audiobooks, they don't have to like go somewhere to be printed out, so you can do something more current.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to it, and it's really good, everyone. And you should get it. Go to Audible and get it.
It's actually free. You don't have to get it if you have.
If you have a subscription.
Thing. Yeah, or you can sign up for if you're like against Amazon or something. You just sign up for the 30-day trial.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And listen to it, and then that's that.
Yeah.
Don't say I said that.
Yeah. But it's
Kate, before I listened to some of this, and like usually books like this, the author comes in really aggressive, like men are like this and women are like this, like whatever their angle is, like, but you come from a place of humor and doubt and trying to understand and genuine compassion and empathy, and I really like your approach to it.
Oh, thank you. And that is like that's why I wanted to make it, because just like the tone of a lot of the stuff that I was seeing like online just felt like it just felt so wrong. I was like, okay, this is not really how people are, and this isn't actually what it feels like to be a person of any gender in these situations. So I wanted to make something that really felt like what I actually think about and what people actually think about, which is obviously way more complicated than, hey, just don't sexually harass people, man, but the downside of that is it can feel hard to talk about, because like a guy was interviewing me the other day. It was like, what are your main tips? And it's like, I mean, that's a good question, right? Like, it's just that, I wanted this to be complicated and nuanced, so that like has a complicated and nuanced answer too. But I mean, it's only like 6 hours long, and it's listenable in the way that a podcast is listenable, and it's free on Audible Plus. So just listen to it, I think.
Yeah, it's really good. Do you have you have to run, right? That sounds like a leading question, but
in a few minutes.
Okay.
I'm doing the podcast circuit,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Going on other men's podcasts.
Because I have other questions, but I don't want to.
No, it's okay if we run a little bit late. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if it's another man's.
Question.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Leslie?
Oh, we do have a supercast question.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Super chat.
What do we got?
Bill asked, Kate, so it sounds like you are more sympathetic to the stupid stuff men do. Why and what for specifically?
Okay, so I wouldn't say... I'll try to give you like a concrete example. So like one thing I wrote a lot about in this book was my own dad. And, my dad's like a boomer, like classic boomer dad, eats standing up at the kitchen counter, goes in the garage, like does not talk about feelings, and when my brother was growing up, he was really sick, and he had a really serious illness, and like I definitely think that there were ways that the expectations of men like prevented my dad from being able to like talk about that stuff, or even really like help me as his daughter figure out like how I could talk about what I was feeling at that difficult time for my family. So I mean, it's not so much like men doing stupid stuff. It's more like, okay, like how do like the expectations of manhood like shape interactions. And I got to talk to my dad about what he was feeling at that time and what it was like to kind of go through that experience without really feeling like he had people to rely on, but I also, there's like a lot lighter stuff too. I talked to comedians about like just what it's like getting into dumb arguments about like sexism, and we roasted each other. And I interviewed someone that I'm dating. I interviewed him for chapter 6 before we started dating, like, well before we started dating, like 6 months. And then by the end of the book, which was like a year later, we were like, we had several cats together and stuff. So I interviewed him again.
You delivered cats. You gave birth.
I mean, that should be your thesis. Like, look here. Obviously, I have understood men on my anthropological journey. I found one they want to stay around. That seems like proof of concept.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
or that I want to stay around with. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing is I don't know, because like it's tempting to make that conclusion, but like one of the things that I learned, like that was kind of what I felt like at some point in writing the book, you know, a year before that, year and a half before that, like when I was in a relationship with Raghav, I was like, yes, I figured it out. I finally figured out the thing that people are supposed to figure out in their life. And then all this shit happened and changed, and some of it was beautiful and some of it was tragic, and like I think that I really let go of my idea of permanence and happy endings. And it's funny because it relates to masculinity, because a lot of the time I think when people are asking the question of what is a good man, it changes all the time, right? Like in 2014, people were like, it's Aziz, you know, but then in 2017, people were like, oh, actually he's a sexual predator. Remember when we lifted up Louis C.K. and you know, I mean, but the expectations culturally are always changing about what's good. And so I think okay, maybe it makes sense to go to a more human level of what is it to try to be a good person? And then what are the things, both structurally, economically, you know, interpersonally that prevent that, or kind of block people from being able to realize that?
Yeah, it's really I love it, because I mean, I like your whole approach, both in this, in your stand-up, in your online presence, in your writing, because it's very it's honest, and it's it's not corny, but it's vulnerably vulnerable. It's how do I say it? It's it's not, even though you're a performer, it doesn't have that performative anger. Not that there's anything wrong with anger, and you may have noticed that I'm pretty angry sometimes. I
love it about you. Yes.
Thanks, yeah. But it's it's just cool to see someone who has a kind of more, I don't know what the word is, nurturing side.
Oh,
but
thank you.
has your politics. You know, that's something that we don't see a lot. I feel that's, you know, it's there's been such a distortion of feminism, so that feminism is girl power and maybe nurturing, and then praising Hillary Clinton for pantsuits.
Yeah, and Neera Tanden, woo.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard you talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that's a frustrating thing too. I mean, I also, when writing this, got to really sort of dive into what are the expectations that I put on myself about how I should be interacting with men as a feminist who wants to go to feminist heaven or whatever, and where has that kind of blocked me from being close to people. But it hasn't, it's definitely not a red pilled book or something at all. It's
right.
Feminist. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you, Katie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And something I struggle with is being honest about how to navigate being a feminist, and also being honest about enjoying being in a relationship. Even if it's, you know, a monogamous heterosexual relationship. It sounds ridiculous. And it's not I'm kept up at night, but it's that that's my thing. That's my bag. And it's how do I be a feminist and independent and not be defined by my relationship, but just honestly, I enjoy being in relationships more than I enjoy being single.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And
I've
go ahead, sorry.
I don't want to be accused of mansplaining, but that's what the chat say. I'm mansplaining with my
your
eyes.
Yeah. You should tell them they're waistplaining you.
Yeah, but I noticed people women who are on the left do have to struggle with how I've talked to friends talking about how they talk about their boyfriend, because they feel they can't talk about their boyfriend the way someone who's not very political can be, as a very strange thing. Thank God I already got married before I had to worry about any of these problems whatsoever. Sounds hard out there though for y'all though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, like, I don't think I feel a particular, like, I have to talk about like my romantic relationships like a specific way, but I whenever I talk about my current relationship online, the person that I'm seeing has like so many psycho online haters that's its own situation. So I feel like I have no concept of like, what if I was just in a relationship with someone who didn't have an extreme online contingent, you know? I don't know. But no, I know what you mean though, like more broadly of like, you know, kind of like just like this idea of, you know, like feminism, like is there something about it that like, you know, like feeling even like vulnerable with men, like does that make you like less feminist or something?
Yeah.
And I don't think so, but I mean, I definitely like I have felt that expectation at various points in my life, and I'm kind of glad that, you know, so many people are becoming a little more left in their feminism, because like, you know, at the end of the day, like creating like a just and compassionate society isn't like, you know, it's not about an aggressive t-shirt or something if that's not your style, you know.
It's and it's also what was the thing that I was just thinking, we were talking about relationships. I feel like I fall into this trap. I'm just getting super personal here. I'm having a glass of wine too,
of course.
But I feel like I've made, like, my politics, there can sometimes be a conflicting political thing going on, where if you're a socialist or you just care about people and you have this like humanitarian orientation and humane orientation and empathy, like that defines my politics. Then there's the feminism that defines my politics. And of course I would say those things are not at all mutually exclusive. Like they're totally coherent and consistent. But there is sometimes, I think, and this is kind of like a neoliberal, it is kind of like the side, it's almost like self-help pantsuit feminism. It's like the self-help form of it. It's like, you are a queen, and like, who is he to not realize that? And like, if he doesn't blah, 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 like, you need to just like, and it's such, like, I've done some of that stuff, and I see so many people doing that stuff, and it's like, I get it, and it's coming from an insecurity, but it's also coming from a place of like, talking yourself up. I don't know. I know misogynists out there, don't take this and like pathologize women or anything, but it's an interesting thing. I don't know if exactly, I haven't really thought about it a lot, but there's something there.
There definitely is. And I mean, it's like, the thing is like with online, it just all has to go to such an extreme place. And like a lot of that liberal feminism stuff of like, you're a queen, like it, you know, it's like, it annoys me because it's like, you know, I'm not a queen.
Yeah.
Like I'm a
not
regular
a
lady who wants healthcare, you know? But then, you know, sometimes like I remember like, a few months ago, I got into this conversation with this, like, you know, socialist guy whose politics I respect. And, you know, like, he is also very annoyed with, like, liberal feminism. And that makes sense. It's annoying. But, like, this guy talking over me, like, so dismissive and just, you know, not, like, trying to be sexist or something. But it was, like, kind of clear to me in that moment, like, okay, like, there is, like, some of this that it would help you to listen to. Like, you can't dismiss the whole thing, you know? Yeah. Like, it's not either or in all instances, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. There was something I wanted to read and I can't remember what it is, or I don't remember, but anyway. Yeah, well, Kate, this was great. Everyone should listen to this. And any final words that you have?
No, I guess just check out the book or listen to my podcast to Reply Guys. It's a leftist feminist comedy podcast. Katie is one of our favorite guests, and Leslie, you've got to come on.
Yeah, Leslie.
Thank you so much. We'll love to have you on the struggle session soon. We can.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, let's get in the DMs.
Yeah, look at what a mensch Leslie is. He is elevate. Look, I said to like Nick, who's, you know, a producer behind the scenes, and hi Nick, hi Maria, hi Brad. Everyone say hi to them. But I was like, can you put Kate's thing in Kate's square? And he's like, no, Leslie did that.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Thank you. I really appreciate
Leslie
it.
with his fancy, what's it called?
OBS,
yeah. Yeah. And look, you got the Phil Winter, very discerning taste because he's a huge fan of this show. You got the Phil Winter bump It's a great show for real.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, this was great. And I'm so glad. Let's connect again and come back on. And we, a couple months ago when you were on, we were talking about how we should do some kind of self-help thing. Do you remember this? Like an advice thing?
We should. Yeah. I've learned so much about self-help during the quarantine, and I don't think that it is a solution for social problems.
Yes,
like we need a social safety net. We need UBI. We need Medicare for all. But dealing with your own mind on a daily basis can help. So,
Yes, as they say in improv, yes and, right?
Yes, and.
Yeah, so let's do that. We can call it that. We can call it the yes and segment. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right, Kate.
Well, thank you so much.
Good luck on your next podcast, your next inferior appearance.
Yes, exactly.
Not you won't be inferior, the host, obviously. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, cool. I'll see you later. Thanks.
Bye. All right, that was great, right? Oh, my hair looks insane.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
That was wonderful, yeah.
Wonderful.
We're going to... Sorry, keep going.
Oh, I just want to say, make sure that people know, like, if you have Audible, you can listen to Kate Sting for free. If anybody in your family has Audible, you can tell them to go in their account, download it, and then you can get it too on Amazon if your accounts are connected. I guess just like your spouse, assuming you're not a child of anybody. So you can get it from your spouse.
What about a sibling?
You can't get it from a sibling. You can't get it from a sibling, I don't think.
That's the I don't want to say that word, but the taboo that we were talking about earlier. You see? Full circle. By the way, do you want to know the one? So there are different like prohibitions or taboos that like some societies have this incest taboo, that incest taboo, but do you know the one that goes through like that every society shuns? In other words, there's some societies where, like, in some cases, a brother and sister can, whatever. So you guess which one is never okay?
Which?
Just guess.
You want me to guess?
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to guess. I'm sorry, Katie.
No, that's okay. That's fine. I'll just tell you. Yeah, you're right. You're really setting yourself up, no matter what you say. Like, anything you say will be used against you.
Yes.
It is the mother-son.
Mother-son.
Which is what makes Back to the Future so powerful.
Yeah.
Such a powerful vehicle.
Oh, God. Because that movie is like definitely like about that. And of course, you have Oedipus. Like it really, I think if there's a reason, I mean, we could bring this back that there's a patriarchal reason why that's the only one that's banned universally. You could possibly say. But we would need an anthropologist.
Yeah, we need an anthropologist, Which is why, though, just going to throw it out there since we're talking about weird subjects, why I stand so hard for the position that obviously circumcision was based in health. That's it. It was a health concern. Because tell me the culture or religion that would be like, for some ulterior motive, I would suggest and I would advocate for removing a part of a man's penis.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but also you had that like they didn't know anything about health, right? So like it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't.
Well,
like that's a kind of a strange.
That's just seems weird. Like a strange debate, though, because like they knew that's why they don't eat pork. That's why Muslims and Jews. I don't know what happened to the Christians in the middle, by the way. Sorry, guys, but Muslims and Jews they don't eat pork because you could get that disease.
Yeah,
and they circumcise because sand can get. I mean, think about where people are living then. Like, there's all these things that can go wrong, and that does not mean I would circumcise my kid if I had one. Yeah, but I'm not going to pretend that on a macro level, circumcision is recommended. I mean, it is recommended on a pan. I don't know what the word is. On a global level. I mean, there are lots of different things that you take into account, but I'll just say in some countries it is a recommended thing because of health. Anyway, see, these are the subjects that no other
show gets.
By the way, female circumcision, that's not even a term. That's not a term, okay? I don't care what your position on circumcision is. You can be for it, you can think it's mutilation, whatever. It's not that there's no comparison because one of those things was based, and this is why I'm so committed to it. Because there's nothing health-based about genital mutilation of women.
Yes.
There's nothing. Like, you can't find anything. There's not a single thing that you can be like, well, that was so women didn't blah, blah, blah. No, there's nothing there. That's just, like, absolute pathological shit. So that's what I would say. I would say female circumcision is a total misnomer. It should never be used, and it totally whitewashes. And look, someone says, I would like my foreskin back, and I will support you if you want to pursue that foreskin and
okay,
reparations.
I hate to break it to you, but like this is also another topic big on YouTube debates, circumcision. So you have dived into all of them now. You may be bringing
head
in
first into the circumcision. I
some
pulled it back.
new
I pulled back the...
Yeah. Maybe bring in some new viewers. You might get rated by Destiny or something.
I mean, yeah. Look, I'm no more holding back. I'm trying to use as many. By the way, no one liked my rib for her pleasure joke. When you were saying...
They don't always appreciate it. They don't always appreciate it.
Anyway, but thank you for reminding me why I was so committed to that interpretation of... I mean, I think it's true. I think it's absolutely true. But the ideology behind it is that the same does not apply to genital mutilation of females. Okay, so want to read before we bring in our next guest, who's amazing. I'm so excited to bring him back on. I just want to thank the new patrons who have joined just since the last episode. Now, if someone like lowered their level, do I chide them? No, I just let it go, right, Leslie?
Oh, if they didn't give the super chat?
No. If they went from a certain level of support to a lower level.
Oh, and they dropped down?
They dropped down.
No, because people, if they
could be going through something.
Yeah, they could be going through something, and they didn't cancel outright, so that actually is like
when you
very
cancel
nice
outright, right? Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's like, and a lot of people have been forced to cancel things outright. So the fact that they still kept it on, that's really going out of their way.
Yeah, you're right. So I want to praise them. Yeah, I should. Yeah.
All right, we got 3 super chats up there.
Oh wow. Okay, let's read them, and then I'm going to thank my patrons, and then we're going to bring on NBD, just Matt Brunig.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yes, and thank you, Carne Verde, for this. Hold on. Wait, where's that class? Hold on. Kate. Wait, where? Printed paper. Okay, hold on. Where's the thing that's your body, your choice? Okay, sure. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. Here's what I'm going for. Katie is correct. Female circumcision is more like removing the male glands or actual tip of the penis. Thank you for saying it. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is, yeah, I can't totally get... Dear Abby, aka Katie, I recently met for the first time at 40-year-old second cousin, second removed. Is it wrong for me to retract her? I can't weigh in on this. I don't have the training.
Maybe. What state are you in?
Good question.
What
And
state
that's
are you in?
because Leslie, you may not know this
in?
about him, although I have very good South Dar. He's
It depends on what state you're. I mean, it's not unusual to be attracted. I don't know if you want to take it any further than that, but I wouldn't say it's unusual. That's not an unusual thing. You're not a weirdo for that.
Yeah.
I let you know. Anti-gravity say they remember their circumcision.
Okay, I'm sorry. Still doesn't mean that you had the tip of your penis cut off. But I am sorry. I don't think it should be I wouldn't do it to my kid. All right. But there's nothing wrong with people to do. Anyway, all right, let's go. Ready? New patron since the last episode. Ready? Brian. Michael. Thank you. Jeff. Thank you. Dumitrita, which is a really cool name. Dumitrita. Butnaru. Hagen. Deepak. Kyle. Omar. Lindsay. Jason. Lucas. David. Thank you guys so much. You're the best. Leslie, can we get a snapping? Or do you not do that because it's so corny? I mean, I'm doing it somewhat.
I do a clap. I prefer a clap.
Okay. And also, I would just like to encourage people to like and subscribe to the channel, guys. We have, you know how many subscribers we have right now? 39,439. We got to get to 40,000 by when? By Sunday?
Oh, you're setting the goal. Okay.
You want me to say by next Thursday?
Yeah. And
my math isn't that good, so I don't know how many I just committed to.
Yeah. So let's say next Thursday. Give
Thursday.
yourself a week.
All right, we got a week to get to 40,000.
1
Okay.
week to 40,000, or else.
Or else.
I knew someone. He said, unless I hit this sub goal, I'm shutting down the show. And he
Really?
didn't hit it, and he shut down the show.
Who?
He's. I'm not gonna say it.
But that's sad because then what happened? Did anyone care?
Oh no, he just wanted to move on to something else, but he needed the show to reach a certain level in order to keep doing it. I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable thing. Usually, usually it's the reverse. It's like, oh, you reach a certain goal, then you quit your job, and then I think he was like, if I can't get this goal, then I need to get the job, and I can't do the show.
All right, here's another problem, by the way. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm calling you in. Ready? No, we're getting to Neera, Tanden. Don't worry. But here's the thing. I'm not calling anyone out. I'm calling in. Can someone highlight that thing again? 1,051 viewers. It's beautiful. Only 627 likes. Come on, everyone. Hit that like button. Right?
Yes, hit the like.
Hit the like. Guys, come on. If I hit the like button, this video goes on my covered like list. Sorry, I can't do it. What? Coveted like list? Anyway, we're not going to get into that. All right. Well, thank you guys, everyone. And we're going to get 5 more patrons by the end of the show. Is that realistic, Leslie? Guys, that could be $1 a month.
5 more? With Matt Brunig coming on?
Oh, I know.
Of
We
course.
should really raise it. Yeah. Brad is right. Hit the like. Kind of rhymes. All right. So, we are bringing on to the show Matt Brunig. He is the founder of the People's Policy Project. He is a lawyer and a wonk. I call him a wonk. That's who he is to me, first and foremost. So, bringing into the chat, Matt Brunig. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. You?
I'm doing well.
Great. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I don't know if you guys have met IRL or online. Leslie Lee.
Online, we've chatted.
Tweeted.
Yeah,
but never in person. But very nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Leslie.
You guys are both from, different places, but Matt is from the state of Texas.
Oh,
That's right.
And Leslie
Originally.
is from...
Louisiana.
There you go. We
So
border
spent
one
a lot of
another.
time in Texas. Yes.
Yeah. So, there you go. I just wanted to give you guys that to bond over.
All right.
And
I didn't know. I'm sad I didn't know you were from Texas, Matt. I gotta admit, you don't necessarily give off Southerner energy. I don't know if that's
PSE?
deliberate, if you're ashamed of your redneck past, as Ben Folds says in the song. But I don't want to blow up your spot. If you're trying to keep it undercover.
I have to drop all of the inflections and stuff and try to speak like a northerner to be taken seriously.
Is that your, not to sound like a total terrible, I don't know what the word is, but is this your, the accent you grew up with?
Yeah, I think so. I grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth, the Metroplex.
Right.
So if you're in a city, I don't know, all cities are kind of similar in some respect. I think it's more once you get out into the rural areas that it really gets thick. So.
Yeah. Well, I got into a lot of trouble when I went after, what's her name? Coney Barrett?
Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah. I was listening to her and I thought she sounded like someone from Long Island. And I jokingly said, this is cultural appropriation and it's not okay. And then I didn't know that there's this whole cool, New Orleans accent. And in fact, I got to get Adolph Reed back on the show to break it down for me. But people were and then people are like, really? That's what you care about? I'm like, yes, it is so much more problematic than her pro-corporate, reactionary. It pales in comparison to that. Those pale in comparison. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this person. Anyway, it was fun. But Matt, love having you on and love that you are, the People's Policy Project is a great organization. It's a great think tank. And it's unique because it's actually a crowdsourced think tank, which is rare and really important. In fact, before you guys created that, I didn't realize how important that was. Because we're so used to a world where think tanks are funded by incredibly wealthy people or institutions or interests. And before we get into the Neera Tanden stuff and, don't worry, guys. This is not a petty thing. This is about policy. But before we get into that, how did you even realize that there was like a need to create a think tank that wasn't?
Well,
what's the word?
I lost all my jobs.
Well, it does kind of relate to the Neera thing, actually.
Yeah, no, it's directly related to it. I lost my job at Demos and then my job at the National Labor Relations Board. And, I thought I could make a go of it. And, it turned out to be the case. I can't make like a ton of money on the think tank. In fact, I make more on my podcast than the think tank, but it's enough to write 5 or 6 nice papers a year and get them nicely designed, and then just kind of keep in the news and try to like influence, news coverage and the direction of bills and stuff like that. It's enough to kind of get that off the ground. So
yeah,
it's worked reasonably well. And you're right. I mean, the other think tanks, they get their money from primarily foundations, very high net worth individuals, or the Gulf states.
Right.
To pour a ton of money into the think tanks. And it's funny because it's one of the things I've had to like grapple with for a while. I mean, I think I've done a good job of getting taken seriously as a think tank. Like I get quoted all the time in newspapers, and like members of Congress and stuff will reach out to me. But you do have people who occasionally are like, this is a fake think tank. This is not, and I'm kind of like, what's a fake? Why is it fake?
Right.
What makes it fake? And it's like implicitly, it's like, well, it's fake because you're not getting money from the Gulf states or the Bill Gates Foundation.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, I get money from real people. If anything, I'm the legitimate one, and
Yeah,
they're
the
all
fakes.
fake.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And your podcast is the Bruenigs,
That's right.
which is a great podcast. Yeah. Which you co-host with your fellow Southerner, fellow Texan partner.
That's right. Elizabeth Brunig of the New York End Times.
Yes. So yeah, I wanted to have you on because I have a kind of, it's not a Neera Tanden obsession. And it's not because she came up with a term for me. Do you guys want to know the term she came up for me? For me? It's, Dalton socialist. So I went to this school. It's a private school called Dalton, and it deserves the ridicule that it will get for being a ritzy private school.
Is that where Matt Iglesias went?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We were the same year, actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Did you know him?
And he had hair like to here. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's exciting.
We took Russian fiction together.
Wow.
Yeah. And
You had Russian fiction
Russian literature. Yeah, Russian literature. I think it's an elective.
At your high school?
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Ridicule it if you must. I understand. I do the same thing. Yeah. And then I taught there, but it's funny. It's like, so she uses this word. Either she created it or someone else did, and she uses it. It's obviously about me, not to sound whatever, because long story short, Iglesias is not someone she would call a socialist. And I don't know who else, any other lefties who went there, who she would want to be hostile towards, at least.
Right.
Dean Wareham of the band Luna, who's a Bernie fan, did go there, but don't think that's who she's talking about. So, the thing with you're like a perfect, and again, I don't want you to feel Tanden objectified. Had on Matt to talk about healthcare. I've asked him about the HEROES Act, many things, minimum wage stuff. But there's something about the way that obviously her tweets about Republicans don't matter. And obviously, as my fellow leftists, point out, her tweets are not the issue. It's her policies, right? But to me, the reason that her Twitter presence does matter, Tanden's Twitter presence, because, and I was like, I've been trying to think of it, and I've been talking to editors, and I can't, I have a bit of a Neera block in my head, but it's because I think in real life, she weaponizes identity politics and lived experience, right? She cites the fact that she grew up on Section 8 housing, she was on food stamps, and then what does she push? She pushes austerity. So she cites her background benefiting from these programs, and I don't mean that I'm not at all it's good. People should be benefiting from these programs. My only thing is I'd like them to be less means tested, but there's no criticism for that. It's the criticism I have is that she benefited from these things and then wants to turn around and deprive others of those things, right? she cites her being, her parents are hardworking and her mother was from India and she's a woman of color. It's like, that's great. And you also cozy up to Netanyahu, want to steal the oil from Libya. Again, just a lot of things that she uses identity and lived experience to cover for. And I think, and I'm going to ask you to elaborate on those things, but the Twitter thing that kills me is it's like she condemns and, laments the online toxicity that exists. And you are one of the people she accused of doing that. Demands that every single person, that Sanders, like, disavow, repudiate, condemn any and every random online person who either likes him or claims to like him. And then at the same time, she elevates people, hangs out with people in real life who say absolutely, like, misogynist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic things. And people are like, who cares? It's her tweets. I'm like, yeah, of course it's her tweets. But there is something to her tweets that's significant. And then with you, I was like, oh, this is where it comes full circle, right? Because, and I'm going to ask you about this, but you and Tanden and Joan Walsh got into a policy fight. And that was resolved. Basically, they got you fired and cited your alleged online toxic behavior. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's really what it is. It's like her Twitter presence is the same thing as her real life presence, which is weaponizing identity politics, lived experience, and on Twitter, civility politics to actually push to try to neuter the left. And when you were fired from Demos, that was like kind of an example of what she tried to do. Anyway, that was me working stuff out with you and Leslie here. But can you share that what happened between you or among you and Walsh and Tanden?
Yeah, so in the 2015 primary, I actually didn't know who Neera Tanden was before that point, but she got pretty active on Twitter at that point. I kind of wonder if how active she was before then, because I feel like I would have noticed her, but she really got going then. And it was Bernie versus Hillary. Things were really heating up. And she just started tweeting at me for a while, and then I clicked on her name, and I was like, oh, it's an important person. I should follow her. And we would kind of go back and forth for a while. And one of the big trolls I used to do on her is every time she would tweet something about, Hillary Clinton saying, she's super progressive, and she takes no progressive backseat to Bernie Sanders. I would always say, this is why we can't nominate Hillary, because she's too progressive. She can't win the general election. And this would really get her wound up. And I don't know, over time I would just kind of agitate, like that. Nothing ugly, just sort of screwing around, like you do online. And then what happened was, when I got fired, is Joan Walsh wrote a piece at The Nation that was basically like, I could never support Bernie Sanders because all his supporters are, misogynist, racist Bernie bros. Like, it's one of those pieces. And Hillary Clinton is the candidate of women and people of color. And I replied to Joan, well, that it's really about age. That if young women are for Bernie and older women are for Hillary, and young people of color are for Bernie, and we see this in the polls, and like it turns out that there are more older voters than younger voters. So like overall, but like I was sort of pushing back on that. And I kind of gotten tangled up with Joan about it. And then Neera comes into the thread. So Neera's not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not tweeting at Neera Tanden. And she comes into the thread and starts, getting mad at me for, criticizing Joan, I guess. And then we have the run-in where I'm like, well, you worked on welfare reform. Hillary Clinton worked on welfare reform. That was no good for me. And then, like you said, she's done this thing, and she's doing it now, even in her bid for trying to get through this OMB nomination, where she tries to use the fact that she was on benefits as a kid as a kind of identity shield to say, you can't criticize me for what I've done in politics. Very similar to, how someone might say, well, I'm speaking as a woman, you can't, this or that, or but in this case, it's speaking as someone who received AFDC,
right?
Like it's a really niche, weird identity to of course the Section 8 community, and we all have very similar opinions and experiences, and it's a really weird thing to kind of pitch that way. But I said, go ahead.
No, keep going. Sorry.
I tweeted back, scumbag Neera uses welfare when she needs it takes it away from others when they need it. and they decided to really fixate on like scumbag, like, oh, well, nah, he's gone over the line. He used the word scumbag, which of course, I don't know if people are real plugged in the internet know that was a reference to Scumbag Steve meme, which was a big thing at the time. So it wasn't even like I was calling her a scumbag. Even if I was, that's a pretty low level taunt. Like, yeah, and then I don't know. The one way or another, Demos fired me, put out a press release saying I'm, just a horrible abuser online, I guess. And
this was not that this meant. Joan Walsh had called you a troll before or after you said this. It doesn't matter because I'm not justifying.
Before. Yeah, she was calling me a troll, and that's why Neera jumped in. I don't remember the full thread, but Neera basically was like, in solidarity with Joan against Matt Brunig, the troll, who trolls me also, kind of thing,
right.
So,
and then,
which I mean, I did, but not in a like I said, like making fun of like, whoa, if she's so progressive, then I guess she can, like shit like that.
In a way that you would have with a straight white man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, she didn't accuse me. I don't think she's accused me of going against her as a woman of color.
okay.
Thankfully, I don't remember her ever trying to pull that.
That's a lot of self-restraint for her because she weaponizes that quite a bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and so that was a fight, and then that turned into a whole thing, right? Where I'm just going back a little bit when you said the niche thing. I mean, it wouldn't make sense if you were saying Section 8 housing. There's a logic and like moral, like a morality and sense of justice to saying I grew up under these conditions, and because of that, that's informed me and my perspective, and that's why I'm going to fight for people like that. People, who like my mom. But it is extremely sordid to use that and then say, entitlements are on the table.
It's weird. And but you do also see that in other groups. Like they want to they'll take someone who has the relevant identity to really bring down the sword. Because then they can kind of say, well, I grew up in this or that, or I've experienced racism or whatever, and then they do something that makes racism worse or, is bad for the economic prospects of people of color, something like that. But, like that's something that they do on all the groups, it seems like. It's a common strategy. But yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing when someone is pointing out, hey, you cut this, for you to be like, how dare you? I used to be on it. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it makes you a sellout. Like that. Like she can call me, what she's saying to me is I'm kind of like a class traitor, which I will take, any day. And I'm, again, not to make this about biography, but it's like, if you're going to point to your biography, this is like the neoliberal version of someone like the Ben Carson story, right? Where he just overtly says, the Tanden argument doesn't go that far because that's like very right wing, like overtly right wing. But their thing is like everyone has a chance, and she even uses the word grit, like with her mom.
Yeah, no, I think the right wing line is to say this experience informs the reason why I want to get rid of it. In her case, I'm not even sure I would say that Tanden. She's an operator. She wants to be in mainstream Democratic politics. The reason she worked on welfare reform is because she thought it would help her in her career in mainstream Democratic politics. The same reason why in 2010 she came out for cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Right. I wouldn't say it's almost like she's not the kind of creature who you can be like, what's her real views? It's like she likes to be in the Democratic Party, like that. Those are her views. She likes her career in politics. But so she just kind of uses it as a shield as necessary when having a career in politics means going with the flow on something that actually is counter to what would have benefited her as a kid. But you make a good point. The Ben Carson point, this is one of the early problems I kind of identify, because when you're coming up, as a I don't know, teenager, and you're getting interested in left politics, you can get sucked into like different modes of doing it. And one mode of doing it is very kind of like, well, what's my experience and what does that tell me about this or that? And it occurred to me as someone who could maybe say, hey, I came from the working class. Look at my single mom who worked at the JCPenney or whatever. That Well, a lot of people who come from that position, if they find success, which they need to find in order to be in a position where they can opine, like you don't get in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times if you grew up poor and then stayed poor. Like that doesn't happen. It's only if you've gone up the ladder. But then that experience, that's not a good experience for you to then talk about, like, 'cause that is a rare experience. And if you look through the whole world through that lens, you're going to get very distorted views about what's possible and what's common, and and you're probably not likely to reflect enough on your own situation and say, damn, this was really lucky, so I don't know. I don't find people with that background in particular who have also succeeded, those are oftentimes the worst people who have the worst politics because of that experience,
Yeah. Especially when, I mean, an overtly conservative right-wing thing, it's like kind of overtly sadistic and punishing, right? It's like, I made it, and these people, they think that they're going to get by. They want handouts. Like, I made it through hard work. And with the, like, neoliberal, like, meritocracy, technocracy class, it's like, if you give people a fair shot, like, there is, it's all about, like, making it so that 1 out of 10, like, Black families can make it, just like 1 out of 10 white families can make it, as opposed to 1 out of 20 or whatever. I'm grabbing these numbers out of thin air, but
yeah, a social mobility story.
Yeah.
We'll rethrow those dice every 10 years, and who gets to be very poor and who gets to be very rich. And it's like, well, I'd rather just squeeze the differences as opposed to move people around the hierarchy. But yeah, I think people just, they have a bad sense of their own story, and then their politics. You can kind of get into this little loop where you think you've done really well and you're very proud of yourself and what you've succeeded at. That kind of pushes you towards, hey, if I can do it, then anyone could do it, and then that kind of moves you to the right. And then as you get more to the right, you then rethink your own experience through the lens of your right-wing politics. And then your story gets retold in your own head, and you start shaving off things. Like, I mean, I think about in my own situation, obviously I've been very successful, I guess, as far as these things go. But there's so many moments where it's like, this could have easily gone one way or another.
Right.
Like, I mean, one is when I was in high school, I scored on the top, I don't know what it was, like 0.3% on the PSAT, and that gets you national merit designation, which is why I got a full ride scholarship at the University of Oklahoma. But like the difference between being in the top 0.3% and being in the top 0.4%, which would not get you that, is like 1 or 2 questions, and I for sure guessed on 1 or 2 questions, that I probably got right, just luck of the draw, So.
Right. There's a humility that goes with that, right? That's not like by the sheer grit. It's my determination, and the American dream means that I get a chance at this. It's like the Hamilton musical or Hillary Clinton's like tested slogans. It's all about just making it a more, not leveling leveling, I guess, the playing field. It's not an egalitarian mission. It's just a meritocracy one.
Yeah, it's about making society fair in the sense that everyone winds up in the part of the hierarchy they're supposed to be on, as opposed to saying this hierarchy is a mess. Let's level it as much as we can. And I mean, it's still important, even when it's leveled, to at least try to make sure the positions are open to everyone, and that kind of. But like in our society as it exists right now, it's the gap between the top and the bottom is the bigger issue than who manages to get the Wall Street job or who manages to get the big law job, or whatever the paths are. Like that's just, it's just swamped by the overall inequality.
Yeah. Leslie, do you have any? I have a bunch more questions, but just wanted to.
Yeah, it's just, and it doesn't matter what your background is, because if you're a poor person who makes it to a level where you can talk to Neera Tanden and you have a different opinion than those in power, you're just ignored or not listened to anyway. So like it doesn't matter. And if you're a rich person who's never had to suffer, but you espouse whatever the liberal status quo is, then of course your experience and your lived experience is, you know, extremely, extremely important and worth taking seriously.
Yeah, I've written before about this sort of double bind, which is a sort of related to what Leslie's saying, that if you kind of think about people as only being able to talk about issues if they have some kind of authentic connection to them based on their background and experience, when it comes to poor people, they do wind up in a situation where if you grow up poor or lower class or working class and you stay there, of course, you don't get any traction on anything. I don't know, maybe these days you could get a podcast going or something like that, but certainly in the like elite media, right? If you grow up there and you stay there, you're just not in a position to intervene in the discourse. If you grow up there and you advance, then one thing they'll do, if you do try to play that game, which I've always just said I'm not playing the game, is they'll say, well, okay, yeah, when you were a kid, but look at you now. Like, like they'll say, well, you're not poor now, so who do you speak for now? And it's like, right. Well, yeah, so who can speak for them then? They can't speak for themselves, because if they pitch the Wall Street Journal, that doesn't get published. I can't speak for them, because even though I have some connection through my childhood, I don't really have a connection now. Maybe my income's quite high. So who then? It's like, well, nobody. Like the schema doesn't work for economic position, I guess, in the same way that it might work for other groups, because of course you have highly educated and highly paid women and highly educated and highly paid black people and trans people and whatever. But if you're highly educated and highly paid, you can't be poor. You can't,
yes.
So.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just like a question of, are you using your lived experience to fight for the people who've come from that community, or are you using it to fight against them? And I guess it's almost like there's a refreshing honesty and directness about the Ben Carson position, because it's so overt, right? Like, no, there's nothing subtle. There's nothing like undercover. He's like, I survived this community because handouts are bad, which is why we have to dismantle the welfare state and not give people handouts. And if we give people handouts, that's what keeps them trapped in poverty. But like the Tanden position is not that, but it's also like, look at, okay, obviously it's just a question of like 10 minutes. If I haven't mentioned Bernie Sanders, just wait 10 minutes more and I will. But like the way that he grounds his politics in his lived experience, right? So like his family being wiped out in the Holocaust. I mean, that's actually a really pertinent example, because we were talking about the Michael Che joke before. But like, yeah, you have some Jews grounding their using the experience of the Holocaust to justify what I would describe as very, as like basically as ethnic cleansing. And you don't have to equate it with the Holocaust to see that that's what the founding of Israel was. And then you have people who use that to say that's why it's these experiences make me committed to not allowing for more oppression and, let's say, ethnic cleansing. And so it's always a question of just like who gets to wear that label and elevate that mantle. And that's what is scary about. I think identity politics are good. I think what's scary about the weaponization of identity politics.
Yeah, I mean, you can use background narratives to kind of go in any direction you want, right. Really. So if you're trying to defer to what people's opinions are based on whether they can present some kind of background narrative, you could go really any which way. I mean, like you mentioned with the Holocaust, obviously you can have someone who's just really strongly in favor of social justice, right. And oppressed peoples, and especially people oppressed based on their religion or ethnicity, and like right. You could go that route. Or you could, you could go another route and say, well, look, I mean, everyone who's pro, I don't put this delicately, but the people who are some of the more strongest apologists of what Israel gets up to, they often dip into the exact same historical narratives and backgrounds and say that's why it's so important that we have a strong muscular state that is a Jewish ethno state and all the rest of it. So you could go anywhere with it, really.
Right. It's just that one side always gets, like, whichever side is more funded or more powerful gets to claim that they really represent the real ones.
Right.
And what else? Do you have any other insights into what needs to be done? Like anything that you hear from the Biden administration that you want to call out for being particularly, like, dishonest? Because I think something that happens a lot is that people who are on the left, like, we're not experts. Like, I don't know. We're susceptible, I think, sometimes to the argument that, like, this is a great idea, but it's just not doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny to try to figure out what is Biden even up to. Like, it's so quiet. They're spending a lot
bombing Syria, apparently.
Oh yeah, no, on the foreign policy and on immigration and that stuff is kicking off for sure, and it's been a total disappointment. I mean, I guess depending on what you expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns out that these sort of concerns on the border were Trump specific, not policy specific among Democrats. Same thing with certain foreign policy things, but I don't know. I kind of figured that for a long time. In the areas that I work on, which are economic policy and, benefits and, I don't know, minimum wage and labor and like all that kind of stuff. It's just, we just kind of waiting and seeing on this COVID bill. I don't know if you guys saw today, you may have been on the show when it happened, but the parliamentarian of the Senate, said no.
Okay, what is that? I have to admit, I don't know. What is the parliamentarian of the Senate?
It's like a job. You could get it if they wanted to hire you.
Leslie and I apply? We should have a conversation.
I don't know what kind of background they would require, but it's not elected or anything like that.
It's some nerd who read Robert Rules of Order.
Right.
Yeah.
And ostensibly is supposed to be deciding on certain parliamentary procedures and
is this point of order in timely or just a lot of shit like that. But it comes most of the time it's whatever, but it becomes important in this very narrow case where to pass the reconciliation bill, which is like a once a year kind of thing where you can get a bill done with 51 votes, which is weird. Like, why can't they all pass with 51 votes? But that's how it is. You can cram it through this reconciliation bill, but there's a requirement that it pass something called the Byrd Rule, and the relevant part of that is whatever you're putting in this bill, it needs to change government spending or government revenue, which the minimum wage actually does, because if you change the wages, it has actually quite a lot of cascading effects on revenue. I mean, for example, if someone makes higher wages, they pay higher tax. They also receive less benefits, so that part is not a problem. But there's a caveat to that, which is that the revenue and spending that you do through your policy change, it can't just be, quote, merely incidental to the non-budgetary aspects of the provision or something like that. And so that becomes a question, which is, are these budgetary impacts of the minimum wage, which are tens of billions of dollars, are they merely incidental to a non-budgetary thing, which is changing the minimum wage? And there's like, what is this? Is this science? What are we doing here? Like, anyone could say yeah or no. I mean, it's bullshit ultimately. And they've let a lot of
law on people.
and it's like, but there's not like a case law on it or something. Like, at least with some of the vague aspects of law, you have 100 cases that judges have decided, and you can kind of look at those and kind of figure out where the line is. Here it's just like one-off things that they occasionally throw out, but they've done some weird ones over the years. So the weirdest one, which people keep pointing out, is I think 3 years ago they did one where the Republicans wanted to open up drilling in the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling, and they let that go through because it does increase government revenue. because that's a federal land and you can lease it out and make money. But it's like, how's that not merely incidental to the budgetary part? And if it's not, how is the minimum wage merely incidental? Like, it's either they're both on one side of the line or the other.
Right.
But yeah, that's how it's turned out. So
yeah,
and kind of the key takeaway about this is it actually doesn't matter. The vice president can just overrule them. Kamala Harris could just overrule this person, but the Biden administration has said they won't do that because reasons.
Yeah, no, she could overrule it, and it's like, guess what? Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of California. I think she's probably more qualified on like who can interpret what laws mean than the parliamentarian. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, the parliamentarian doesn't have any special insight into what the words merely incidental mean that Kamala doesn't also have, and she probably has more because she's an actual experienced lawyer. So there's no like, well, Kamala's not an expert on this kind of thing. It's just a decision that they're making. They also could fire the parliamentarian, which the Republicans did in 2001 when they weren't getting the answers that they wanted. So,
who is this person? I want to know who they are.
What's their name? I don't know who the current one is.
What sign are they? Were they born in?
I don't know.
Right, whatever those things
it's,
are.
It's Elizabeth McDonough. Who she's been there since 2012.
Sounds like there maybe it's time to. Leslie, you want to go for it, or you want me to?
No, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and do it. Yeah, but I know the reason I brought up the law is because Samuel Moyn has been on the show a few times, and I had him on when our BG died, and he was saying, that judges pretend that they're not doing politics through the law. Like, they pretend that they're just, what is it, like calling strikes and balls or whatever.
Right, yeah.
My words, not his. But, and it's the same thing with politics, right? I mean, especially Democrats love pretending that their hands are tied, that they can't do anything about it, that they'd love to. But if they wanted to, they could.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They like to have these little pressure valves where they can kind of go, oh, well, the parliamentarian said this, or we can't do that because of the filibuster, or because the filibuster is another one. And I pointed this out back in 2008 or 2009 when I was like a nobody, but I was still fighting the war, the posting wars, is they tried to defend the fact that the Democrats kind of pursued a pretty weak agenda under Obama, even though they had like 59 votes in the Senate. Like, they had a pretty solid situation there, and it was very weak. And people say, well, there's a filibuster. And of course you say, well, you can get rid of that literally at any time. It's not even a thing where like, well, you could have gotten rid of it at the beginning of the session, but now we're stuck with it. You can get rid of it at any time. And you can also get rid of it just for that bill if you want to. And the weird thing is that although they didn't do that to make the Affordable Care Act better, they didn't do that to make the stimulus better. About a year or two later, when the Republicans were filibustering all the judicial nominees, they got rid of the filibuster so they could get judicial nominees in. So it was like, see, you could have done this the whole time. And even today, it still kind of survives. And there's this like weird, bizarro world where people now realize, wait, we can actually get judges in without the filibuster. But then still go, well, the filibuster, what can we do about that? It's like, well, the thing that lets you do you just do that. But, I don't know. People like external constraints that they can point to instead of having to just say, I don't think this is a good idea or whatever. So
I think that's what the whole Bernie Hillary thing revealed, right? It was people who pretended that they would have gotten on board with this. Of course, if these were viable positions, we would do it. I'd be backing it. But then when that person came out and was, they didn't. And so, like the libs and centrists can hide behind I would love that. It just won't work. For so long. Yeah. Yeah,
they want to, because they are kind of, they don't want to, and this goes all the way back to the kind of messing with Neera in 2015. They don't, for whatever reason, unlike Joe, who kind of was relished in being like a moderate, who just totally. I'm just not for that stuff. There are a lot of people who work in the moderate part of the Democratic Party who, for whatever reason, are just very insecure about that, and are very much like, I don't. No, I'm a lefty. I like you.
I'm to the left of Bernie. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And so you can kind of, that was part of the freak out, like you pointed out. I think that was part of the freak out with Bernie was, well, here you go. Here's the one you say you're here. So here's a guy that you could do it.
Right.
So
let's go. Right. Do you how much of the online like discourse do you think? I mean, you lost your job, but how much of the online discourse and the narrative about the toxic Bernie bros? I mean, it was definitely picked up and perpetuated by people, Joan Walsh at The Nation, Joanne Reid at MSNBC. How much do you think that shaped versus just reflected kind of politics?
I don't know that it really shaped much of anything. I think it was just a nice kind of convenient way to give a non-policy reason for why they don't like Bernie, right? So it kind of goes back to the other thing, right? They don't want to have to say, no, I just don't like national health insurance, or I just don't like 15 minimum wage, or I don't like whatever it might be, free college, or go on down the list. They want to be able to say, yeah, I'm kind of there, but it's not practical. He can't win, or maybe he could, but you know what? I don't like other aspects of him.
Yeah.
I don't like his white male toxic bro followers, right, or whatever. That seemed to be opportunistic. And then there also seemed to be just, I don't know, like, you know how it goes. When elections get going, things heat up, and there are people, mostly just kind of anonymous people that you just don't really have any attachment to, who kind of get fired up. And depending on which side you are on in the election, that also determines what kind of assholes you get in your mentions,
of course,
right? So, like, I got tons. I mean, if you get it too, I've seen you point this out. Like, tons of vicious abuse from Hillary people.
Yeah.
And then Tanden's got her own weird ass crew on there who's like,
hi, Regina.
Yeah, Reg Wag, and
she's so
and
weird.
they went wild today. I don't know if you saw that with
No,
the
with
Washington
that
Post
journalist
reporter.
who they,
Yeah.
Were like making
yeah.
like Asian racist jokes about.
Yeah. Oh, it got pretty bad.
They
she
called
tweeted
her Uncle Tom. They called her a coon, actually, which makes no sense.
No, Leslie, they're actually post-racial.
You don't get to use coon against a Korean woman.
Yeah.
Because I know you're not black if you're using that word for a Korean woman. First of all, I know you're not actually black. You might be a POC, as they used in the word. They said that this woman had betrayed another POC, which is another reason I know people, they aren't black, because like black people don't get into the whole like we're all POC now. No, we're still black. We're still black. That's a distinct identity. You don't get an N-word pass just because you're a POC. That means nothing,
Right.
So I
That's
absolutely
really funny.
wild stuff from from goddamn Neera Tanden people.
You should call them all out. Just call them out.
I do have to say though, her weirdos are disproportionately black.
They claim to be.
Well, a few I've confirmed. She seems to have like two
Eclectic and
two weirdo black and
Mr.
black
Weeks?
guys. Yes.
And eclectic?
Yeah, she got two of them. So I mean, that is just maybe three when you talk about lobster. And
eclectic
and then you got smooth
Flexen.
Smooth Cobra. So
he's
he's
white. He's white. He's married to a black man. Jeremy's a gay
Marcus
white.
Johnson.
No, Marcus Johnson.
Oh, Smooth Cobra. Sorry, I was thinking of Smart Flexen.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so actually, if you could have like a whole black men for Neera like group, if you really wanted to. So
Mr. Weeks,
I gotta give her points
Mr.
on
Weeks.
that.
Mr. Weeks
I
is
guess
the
I
best.
give her your points.
Mr. Weeks was buying mobile billboards.
Yeah, he drove around in a truck that said "Fuck Bernie Sanders." But you know what? This is why I'm so grateful to Horse Whisperer, who Jack Allison, friend of show, co-host of show, and co-host of Leslie Lee, helped expose, because he is just a straight white man. Like, you can't do a lot with that. And he is a Neera, a Neera troll, a Tanden troll. He defined Brianna Joy Gray as white adjacent bro fodder. said all these economic justice issues are like the priorities of straight white heterosexual people. It's like, well, I guess you would know, mister.
Yeah.
And he's like an executive or something. He like does marketing for like
military contractor, like marketing, like he like and like insurance company, like all the worst people in the world. And Jack was able to dig down. Matt, I did want to give you props because I saw that the Democrats floated actually using one of your fake think tank ideas out there with, what was it, a child
child
I'm
allowance.
sorry, I wanted to ask you about that. And then this is coming full circle, actually. Brian Fredericks asked, could Matt comment on Romney and Biden's child benefit policies? That's what you're talking about, right,
Brian.
Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, I've been writing about this for like 4 or 5 years, and trying to tee this up. But I mean, the long story short is we do actually have child benefits in the U.S., though people don't really realize it or think about it because of how weirdly it's designed and how hard it is to understand. But they are called the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. But the way that they're designed is if you're poor, or even if you maybe not totally poor, but you don't make enough income, you don't get the full benefit. So you really kind of got to be in like the top 70% of the income distribution to get these benefits. And this was an intentional thing they did in the 90s when they were cutting welfare, because the idea was we need to keep cash away from these poor single mothers, and so let's move it up the ladder and using these tax credits to do that. And so I've been saying for 5-6 years, that's fucked up. Like, we should just extend these down to everyone to make sure poor people get them as well. And I had a whole scheme for like how we should do it, and it kind of took off, and a lot of people, got on board. There were papers at some of the other think tanks supporting an idea like that, and eventually Joe Biden, they convinced him in one of his, moments to sign a piece of paper saying he's for it, I guess. And they're trying to get that into the COVID relief bill. And the way that he's got it set up is you would get $300 a month per kid if they're below the age of 6. Above that, you would get $250 a month. But it's an advanced monthly refund of your child tax credit. It's actually kind of a clusterfuck in the way that he's designed it. And that brings me to Brian's question, which is the Romney one. Romney then came out with a counter, and I actually was able to interact with some of Romney's staff on that proposal. And Romney's proposal is actually slightly more generous than Biden's proposal, believe it or not. It's about you can get $350 a month instead of $300 a month, so that's cool. And you also get $1,400 right before you give birth, whereas you don't get that for Romney or for Biden's plan. But the thing that is interesting about Romney's plan is that he adopts my approach to administering the benefit. So instead of having the IRS pay out an advanced monthly version of an annual child tax credit, you just have the Social Security Administration send the check out to everyone. Super, super easy, very, very salient. The Social Security Administration already sends out benefits to 3.8 million kids every month. People don't know that. They think about it's only old people. It's not only old people. Kids get some Social Security if their parents die or they're disabled or something like that. And so that's where we're at right now, is basically me trying to convince everyone, whatever you think about Romney's proposal, at least use the way that he's designed it. Like, that is the way that other countries do it. That's the best way to do it. And I don't know. I've actually had a lot of success on that in the discourse. Like Vox, Dylan Matthews at Vox wrote a whole piece that was basically like, the Romney plan is better designed. And then the New York Times editorial board did the same thing. And, so I've been started beating the bush on that. That's basically what I've been spending the last month on. But they're probably going to go with the dumbass design, at the end of the day. So.
Well, thank you so much, Matt, and thank you so much, Leslie. Any final? I'll stay on for a little bit longer. Matt, I know you have kids to tend to. Feel free, of course, to.
They're sleeping, so
stick around.
I'll head out.
Yeah. And I will, I do need to, again, use the facilities. So let's see, what can I play until Oh, thanks, Matt. Bye, Matt. He knew he didn't want to get trapped in the Jewish goodbye. Which I had a dream about, by the way. I just realized. Do you ever get that when you realize you had a dream about something?
Yes, I do. I do have that happen. Deja vu.
Yeah.
Dream
so,
job.
Well, that is great. Well, Leslie needs to go, so I don't want to have I don't want to ask Leslie to chop it up with you guys. Unless he gives me, unless I can request, a minute.
A minute? Okay, I can do a minute.
Let's say 2 to be, just so I don't feel guilty in case I go over it.
All right.
You can't,
All right.
look, I'm a woman.
2 minutes. All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching the Katie Halper Show. Katie will be back in a little bit, maybe adding some more guests. And you never know what Katie, after the show ends and the after party begins, and they just keep going. Super chat, can't believe it. Romney Care in 2009 and Ramu Relief in 2021 is meant seriously the most influential politician in America for the last 12 years. I guess so. Apparently you can't move left until it has filtered through at least a big as asshole as Mitt Romney. At least I assume that's basically where we're at now, that they have to you gotta get filtered down to where someone at the as shitty as Mitt Romney will approve of it. Oh, and thank you for the congratulations on the MA. I really appreciate it. Yes, everyone, please, can we get some subs to Struggle Session? Check us out at sesh.plus, SCSH.plus, to subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoy seeing me on the show, hey, the way I get paid is by you going over there and checking out sesh.plus. You can also check us out on our wrestling stream every Saturday, where we watch professional wrestling with very interesting guests every week. Have a great time over there. Love seeing wrestling. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And you can see us every Saturday, sesh.show and sesh.show. And I'm also doing a lot more Twitch streams too, gaming streams. I've been playing through Dark Souls a bit. I think tomorrow I might do some fighting games, and you can check that out at sesh.show or twitch.tv/struggle session. You can find me and all this stuff. Yes, I love Dark Souls. Huge Dark Souls fan. I'm playing through Dark Souls 1 before doing the return to Lothric is what they call it. And so I'm very excited for that. Just vibing over there on the Struggle Session Twitch channel. Look, I can pull up. Let's see. That's what we do on Saturday. We watch some of this wrestling on Saturday. Some New Japan Pro Wrestling, perhaps. What are we watching? Oh, that's Kana. That's one of my favorite wrestlers right here. Kana. Japanese wrestling versus Shuri. We do all sorts of fun stuff on there. You never know what you're going to get over there on twitch.tv/struggle session or sesh.show, which you can find us at. Profitium playing Demon Souls 3 now. I'll get into that. Ryan Connors asks if I'm going to watch some Attitude Era WWF on there. Probably. We actually did last week. We watched some of the Brawl for All, where they actually fought for real during the Attitude Era. Maybe I'll watch some Owen, some Ken Shamrock, something like that. Oh, ABCD, yeah. You asked me if I'm a Manami Toyota fan. I am one of the world. The only reason I can't say I'm the world's biggest Manami Toyota fan is because the best man at my wedding is actually a bigger fan. If you look up Manami Toyota, you will probably find me writing about her, or somebody who's used my writing about her, or used photos from either me or my colleagues on my old wrestling website. We were the biggest Manami Toyota fans in the world. I've met her several times. I wonder if I can pull up my picture pull up some of my pictures with wrestlers. You might enjoy that while Katie is gone. Let me see if I can pull this up before Katie gets back. But yeah, I've met Manami Toyota many times. Huge fan. I was at her 30th anniversary show actually in in Japan. Like wrestling is my thing. Wrestling is my thing. I absolutely love wrestling. Maybe I'll show those pictures on the Saturday show. So if you want to see pictures of me with Manami Toyota, Masato Tanaka, all the wrestling greats, you're gonna have to check out the Struggle Session Wrestling Show at sesh.show every Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. You never forget when Undertaker hung Big Boss Man. Legit thought he died on the air. Yeah, wild stuff in the world of professional wrestling. Be sure to check it out. Just head to sesh.show and follow my Twitch channel. You'll get notified every time I go live with some wrestling or some video games.
Sometimes I'm on there. I'm calling out.
Yes.
Calling out.
Katie
Southern,
watched wrestling with me. Yes.
Calling out Southern garbage pail. Bobo. Look at her. Sorry. She has so much. Does she not have so much? Leslie, you've met her. Personality.
Yes, Bodhi has a lot of personality. Bodhi has a ton of personality.
She's so cute. If I rub her belly and I stop rubbing her belly, I know you have to go, Leslie. So I'll let you go, but I'll tell people. Yeah, she's a total Ewok. And if I rub her belly and stop, she goes like this. With both of her paws.
Yeah. All right, yo. Have a good night.
She's getting groomed soon, though.
Bye,
Leslie,
Katie.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Leslie. That's a pretty little thing. All right, guys. So thanks for coming on the show. They're saying, is that thing alive? That's not nice. Look at her nose. It wiggles. You hear her snorting? New patrons, guys. Let's see. Guys, we're just doing a real quick little reset. We were talking, that was Leslie Lee. That was Matt Brunig. And who do we have as new patrons? How many patrons do we have since this show? We got Courtney. That's great, right, Boo? Right, Boobs? And you're tired. She's tired. We'll put her... All right, I know she's mine, so she's not uncomfortable. She's just tired. Don't say that, poor doggo. I wouldn't ever... Trust me, if she is uncomfortable, you know. She not only growls, she will... she pulls back her... What's the expression? She's not freaked out. Can you tell me? Can you not stop telling me this? If she's unhappy, you know. Right, Bodes? She's just tired. When she's unhappy, she growls. She does a lot of things. Right, Boo? Why are you making little piggy noises? Snarls, yeah. Bear's teeth, that's it, yeah. Are you having a little asthma, though? I am a little worried. I am rubbing her belly. Why are you breathing like that? Alright, I gotta give her to my mom to make sure. She used to have... Wait, hold on, guys. She has short snout syndrome. Alright, I'm gonna give you to my mom because I want to make sure she's fine. Right? Do you need some water? Let's see. Oh yeah, you have a dry nose. Let's give you some water. Alright, 1 second, guys. Boo-boo, gotta give you some water. Do you need water? Let's make sure you have water. Where's your water? Let's give you some water. Hold on. Let's give you some water. And yeah, I'm gonna go. You know, we have 3 dogs here, but she's the baby. Can you guys hear me? She's the baby. So, but I have to walk the other ones. So, yeah, she was trying to tell me something, and that was that she needed water. I want to get a thing that's like refillable so that my house is loaded. It is. It's armed. What is it? Wall to wall. I've shown the other ones before. No, I can't give anyone lobster anymore because they torture lobsters. It's so not okay. Yeah, 2 Pugaliers. You guys have seen them. Anyway, Bodhi's like 11. We think she's a rescue. They can't take in air as fast as dogs with bigger muzzles. Momo makes it sound all the time. I know it's really scary though. I'm trying to see. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Oh my gosh, we got some new Patreons. Abhishek and Courtney. All right. That's 2. Yes, that Bodhi's grandma. Where is it? In the statue? Can you still see it? Where is it? No. It's grandfather, I think it would be, but yeah. Thank you so much, Courtney, and thank you so much, Abhishek. Really, thank you. Very, very, very nice. Thank you guys for coming. Really want to thank you. Please consider becoming Patreon supporters, and again, you can just do it for $1. And please subscribe. Also, if you're a podcast person, rate and review. And yeah, we will. Okay, I may. If Sunday's gonna, I have something on Sunday, so it's gonna have to be late, like 10:30, or I'm gonna skip it. So not sure yet. Maybe we can do a mashup, but I think people like to come for it live. Like I could play something old, but yeah, it can be sometimes. Totally agree. What can be sometimes? Oh, and hi, independent-left.news. It can be sometimes. Yeah, the statue's pretty awesome. Yeah, Kelly will be by soon. What is it? It can be sometimes. Thanks so much for thanks so much for being here, everyone. Love y'all. Please remember to hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Yes. Oh, it can be late once in a while. Yeah, if it happens on Sunday, it'll be 10:30. Perm tree, I don't have any, but have a Hamantashen for yourself. Yes, thank you, moderators. Thank you, Brad, Nick, and Maria. Yeah, look at this. There you go. Okay, good night, everyone. See you guys. Yeah, Brad, it was his birthday. I asked him if he could come on. He didn't take the invitation. Don't forget, guys, to independent-left.news wants to be a mod. Yeah, I say go. Yeah, Bodhisattva. She is named after Bodhisattva because she's a Tibetan Lhasa Apso. All right. So yeah, all the mods have blocked me at this point. No, really, is that true? Gardenome, you're so funny though. Happy belated birthday, Brad. Happy belated birthday, Maria. Nick, when's your birthday? I can't hear you. You're going to have to put it in the chat or go like this. March 12th? Yes? March 12th. Oh, it's soon, guys. March 12th, yeah. You know when my birthday is? 7/11. So remember that. It's not that hard to remember. Does Brad have a left side of his face? I don't get it. Anyway. All right. I know they have water dispensers for animals, but here's the problem. Bodhi is fine, but the 2 other dogs, they do not stop drinking. And so my mom is afraid that they will, and one of them pees all over the house. And doesn't just pee. I'll leave it at that. All right. Bye, everyone. Subscribe, like, and share, and Patreon support.